Part 348. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3485. The tall stone-dead strongman who fell off the cliff had two horns and a face like the rumored ghost tribe, but he actually had human-like limbs. With a body that reaches an altitude of 12,000 kilometers, endless terrifying pressure sweeps across it when it lands on the ground, and the momentum of mountains and tsunamis naturally rises. The surrounding heat wave increased by several degrees, reaching the level of 20,000 degrees, which gave Jia Yan and the two of them a feeling of suffocation. "Brother Jia Yan, I rely on you." Kalen was afraid that Jia Yan, whom she relied on, would abandon her and leave. Jia Yan's compound eyes became more gloomy, staring at this majestic creature at an altitude of 12,000 kilometers. "Your Excellency, are you one of the patron saints of the Shimming Empire, Master Kingui?" After a while, a small black figure flew up from the ground below and reached a height that was on par with this powerful master who exuded a huge pressure. "Yes, I am Master Kingui. Even if you know my name, how can you dare to keep pace with me? Get out of here." The two horned creatures looked unswerving and moved their fingertips directly. "I'm hot as ice. Very bad. With or without Kalen, I was alone against that Xiaoneng, and I was afraid that the move just now would have failed. With the superposition of the rules of power, everything is not absolute. Xiaoneng is living like this. Aoki has faced fewer giant life forms, but none of them gave me such a creepy feeling. You can disappoint me, is that all? But I didn't expect it." Chewing on the name that was only circulated in ancient books, Jia Yan's servant rolled his hand back, trying to control Kingui Kiju in the palm of his hand. Adventurism, which in some cases can seem crazy. A demon. Facing the birth gate between the fingers, a small amount of formation power spurted out from under one foot, reflecting the already sharp toes into a gray-blue color. There are no gaps between the palms, and these gaps are the gates of life. However, even if there are huge and small creatures, the gaps between the fingers of my palm are extremely small and cannot accommodate the green ghost to pass through. This way. Forgetting about me, girl, is a very irritating thing. A huge palm like a mountain swept over. The feeling of feedback that came back gave Kingui hope again. Kingui nodded upon hearing this. "I don't just stand and let him attack, he also breaks my defense. The little mighty one is not simply the power of strength. No matter how frightened I am, it will show on my face." I flashed my compound eyes slightly, and quickly arranged a few layers of brilliance. The newly arranged defenses were stronger than each other, and I was overwhelmed by the opponent's power. Breakthrough. It definitely hurt Xiaoneng. The dark white mosquito body emerges from it. Is the opponent trying to attack around his palm as quickly as possible, but instead counterattacks towards my slap? Today's battle is a battle to build confidence. Puff. A great poison is the knowledge of evil and evil. Kalen had no means to cut off my absolute domain, which meant that she was unprepared afterwards. That's my method. To be able to cause a small amount of shock in the Shimming Empire and make the royal family anxious and order me to fight, the strength of that great creature naturally does not have a certain level. In just a short period of time, thousands of blows were struck. Return to defense. But if there is another rule, and it is a rule with a huge increase in attack power like the rule of power, it will be completely the same. Kingui has never been as cautious about his companions as he is today. Jia Yan never thought that his casual blow could not kill the creature behind me. Stare at the Shinman. Humph, even with the rules of power, his physical strength is still too strong. For me, he is enough to be afraid. Okay, let's try your level. But it didn't make Kingui's hands and feet feel cold, and he also had the thought of being an enemy. Therefore, I seem to have been transforming the rules of space and the rules of fire. I have expressed this to others in front of others, but the purpose is to deceive others. Aoki found himself escaping several fatal attacks from the opponent's hands. Bad week. Jia Yangziawanen's expression moved slightly. Unexpectedly, Qinggui's attack was instantly superimposed with some weird power. Unexpectedly, Qinggui's demon didn't have the eighth rule, and Jia Yan's expression became quite dull. Kaelin's expression above her changed several times, and she was about to spray out some kind of poisonous mist, but she saw a new change in the battle scene below. Thank you. Well. Why the rule of force? Clang. And that kind of field is still the same as the field mastered by low-level players such as Domain Lord level. It's a bad smell. It's a pity that you have time to collect it. Otherwise, if you take a sip, it will do no small harm to your cultivation. No matter how few means he has, if his strength is up to standard, it will still work. My sleep was boring. Kaelin dived directly into the poisonous mist she created, her eyes becoming serious. Before the small palm fell, Mei Liang activated his own rules of life and death, and then a feeling of wandering between life and death appeared behind his eyes. Jia Yan, who originally wanted to bully the big one, his eyes suddenly became as clear as water. Call. It's true that what you say is what you say, your actions are in line with the principles of the universe. Bad Mosquito. The eighth rule. Jia Yan understood. Break all laws with one force. Well. What? Rules of power. On the other side of Qinggui, the rules of power were superimposed on his body, and his eyes showed a strange coldness. But when Aoki's foot stabbed the opponent's chest, one of my palms was already standing there. Since the Dharma has passed through it, I will personally open up a way to survive. Jia Yan's servant speeded up by half a beat, exhaled heavily, and the toxin was broken down in an instant. Servant Jia Yan finally became serious this time. At this moment, a grey mist shrouded fiercely, covering half of Jia Yan's body. Snort. He ducked forward in an instant. Take a deep breath. Stab hard at the place between your fingers. But the rules of fire and what else? Although Jueo had already controlled the area where the green ghost was, this time I was controlled so that I could not move. Although Jia Yan's servant has no new understanding of Qinggui's strength, he still finds it incredible. Seeing that Mei Liang's palm covered the world where Kaelin was, Kaelin even had a chance to dodge, so she had to move directly. Aooni. Maybe that person still has real power, but my power is already brewing. Jia Yan's servant's expression was definitely gloomy. Aoki finally sighed heavily after being suppressed to the limit. Even if I am a small person. But in reality, I have been quietly working towards strength. And all those attacks have terrifying and strange lethality with no rules of life and death. Qinggui said calmly, adding fuel to the fire. Break. Mei Liang took the time to get out of the place covered by the slap, his eyes became sharp. Jia Yan's servant is indeed able to withstand such attention. Even if I know in my heart that Qinggui's purpose is to anger me, I will still react for the sake of reputation. Strength is just one manifestation of our abilities. That's called self-awareness. Aoki, who has a low self-esteem, also believes that he is far from a capable person. In fact, I have been concentrating on studying the way of strength. Reptile, are you seeking death? Before the palm of my hand came, a small amount of cold flames formed pressure on the surface of Qinggui's body. If he wanted to lock me in that space, I had to move. He also saw how Jia Yan's servants moved. Don't even think about it. There is no need to hide anymore. When facing Xiaonang, you have to go all out. This is not your death. Mei Liang only felt that there was no attack coming out from the seam of his palm, although it was great, but it was endless, making me involuntarily stretch out my fingers. The air between the fingers suddenly disappeared, and the palm seemed to create some kind of dead zone, which instantly sealed everything between the palms. That was the same place, and it was the powerful creature from behind that was about to be annihilated by his palm. Although we have known that there is a huge gap between the small abilities in the outside world behind our eyes and the small abilities we know, we are still full of daring to transgress. Jia Yan's eyes were still moving, but I could already see a little anger in my eyes. This cyan brilliance penetrated 8 layers of brilliance and still faded away very quickly. Whether it is matter or anything else, everything is closed. The conversation between Qinggui and Kalen was caused by brain waves regressing at an extremely slow speed. Puff. Xiaonang's ultimate domain. The slap released a small part of the offensive force, and Kalen had no chance to breathe. A small amount of colorful mist emerged from the surface of the body. The colorful body directly broke through the blockade of the absolute realm, and flew out of control panting. Even so, Aokishin's head was filled with ice and cold. With 1 person and 10,000 people, being escaped by a big insect, even Xiaonang's temperament couldn't bear it any longer. Aoki has always been pursuing the rules of space. Bringing out a cloud of dust. Rule. At least the green ghost is difficult to deal with, so I also used a strategy to kill Kalen first, and then kill the green ghost. That's who I am. When it comes to Xiaonang, no matter how confident you are afterward, it is more confident than the actual scene. Tel's mind gradually became more obedient. Bad weak. Because what weak people need most is strength. It's something like a field. Jia Yan was still moved. Ha! And Aoki's feet, blessed by the rules of time, stabbed into the gap one after another. At that moment, Mei Liang felt a biting coldness all over her body. Your Majesty must be merciful. If I don't have the ability to keep you waiting, I'll give it a try. The bad thing is that Kalen, who was assisting from the side, shot a poisonous mist back from the Jueyu, creating some kind of passage. Qinggui violently shook his spirit and knocked out of the control of the Jueyu in a roundabout way along the passage. Now he finally uses his power rules after hiding it for so long. Even so, I was slightly shocked. What? The strength is small and the potential is heavy, and the number of attacks cannot be superimposed. The big thing doesn't have any ability. He also moved his feet slightly, and a light blue light like a light curtain gathered around him. Stabbed. The rules of power that are worthy of a breakthrough unbridledly vent my sense of existence. We must know that for competitors such as Qinggui, it is very easy to kill us if we are weak in our senses. Jia Yan was escaped by Mei Liang again, and his eyes had not yet changed from slightly angry to shocked and angry. Bad courage. At this time, the opponent's expression also changed slightly, and the entire battlefield shape that was originally under control suddenly showed a hint of confusion. A string of golden blood splashed out from the palm of his hand. But that's it. The power of that ray of light was exhausted by the layers of defense, and could only cause some burn marks on the body surface. The chest that was about to be stabbed turned into a stab under the opponent's palm. Aoki raised 1 foot. The 2 competitors joined forces to attack Mei Liang's servants, but their attacks were resolved. The rules of time started again, and thousands of attacks fell at once in an instant. The formations were layered one after another. Mine was stacked with thousands of spear formations, one blow after another, attacking at the little Neng's fingers. Go. The attack moves may seem complicated and crude, but they can only be achieved by using several rules and techniques and having the courage to move forward. His power is weak enough that he seems to be in an impossible zone and has no chance of escaping. My eyes turned to Kalen. The fear of inferior skills collapsed at this moment. The green ghost stepped forward amid lightning and thunder, and crashed into Jia Yan's chest. The power of Xiaoneng is to follow one's will. His words follow the law, and his actions are the way of heaven. Qinggui was eager to try. Aooni. Finally, a cold brand hit directly under the inner skeleton of Qinggui, emitting bursts of green smoke. This is because the opponent's strength level exceeds his own defense level. It is indeed the power of a small capable person. At this moment, in extreme safety, Aogui had a hint of enlightenment. Mei Liang secretly cheered herself up. And as the time rules were superimposed, the attack speed became slower and the mobility became weaker. I was still moved, because he could attack at a slow speed of more than 100, which was just like the bite of 100 ants. That's just a low-level player who can barely reach the level of Xiaoneng. He is still many levels behind the Xiaoneng level in the universe. The rules of power will give you a stab. After getting the answer of injuring the opponent as he wished, Qinghui immediately pulled away because he doubted me, activated the rules of force and the rules of time, and superimposed his own formation acceleration method. It also created quite a sense of threat. The remaining conversion energy, in addition to supplying the power of the array, is also transferred to the rules of power. Try the power of rules. And the opponent's other palm, also carrying the ultimate aura, swept hard at the position where I was standing just now, and I was about to catch the green ghost in the palm of my hand. Although it is not difficult every time, it is a real success. Death is imminent, but we still don't have the willpower to save each other. Thank you. Your poisonous mist can only be effective once. If I don't have any precautions next time, I'm afraid it won't be effective. There are 10 floors. But judging from the senses, the poisonous female life form is very special in strength. A flash of cyan light as fast as lightning popped out from Qinghui's fingertips, arriving in an instant. Knowing that the other party's strength is really amazing, it's far from enough to just rely on conventional means. The rules of life and death just now were not very harmful to me, but they were enough to make me feel threatened. Jia Yan's heart was filled with excitement, but his expression was calm and composed. Poof. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3486. As a blood-sucking mosquito, Jia Yan almost lost his mind when he felt the large amount of golden blood flying in the air. It was really too tempting for him. And these bloods obviously know that they are extremely attractive. Sui sui sui. They automatically surged back towards Aoki's palm. The scrambled blink of an eye disappeared behind the opened crack, and then the skin automatically contracted. In such a short period of time, Aoki's injuries were restored to the original state. But the impact of his injury is still there. The breath of falling will not disappear out of thin air. It can just be ignored. It's still too far off. The best outcome of this battle is for the two of us to escape. Jia Yan quickly returned to normal from his excitement. With his level of strength, it is impossible to always be as high-spirited as a young man. That is the way to death. So he only maintained his emotions for a moment and became calm and analytical. Can't beat it? This is obviously not an ordinary powerful person from the other world. He may be even stronger than the powerful toad. With the addition of the 3 rules, he should be able to fight against a powerful person from the other world like the toad power. But he couldn't beat the mighty Aoki in front of him. Demon, if you want to cause trouble in our shimming empire, you will not be spared today. Qinghui looked at the palm of his hand, and then slapped it again with an expressionless face. Is this palm weak? Suddenly, Jia Yan and Kalen looked at each other. Green Ghost's palm strikes were much slower. And there is no ultimate realm in the palm anymore. They felt more than 10 times more relaxed when facing it. It's not that his power is exhausted. This powerful person can absorb the power of heaven and earth and live forever. Is it because he doesn't want to lose both sides with us? Jia Yan realized something. His eyes suddenly moved further away. In the distance, a goat-horned creature was watching the battle calmly. From the beginning to the end, Jia Yan didn't notice his existence. He didn't see the opponent until he showed the rules of force and probably broke through some limit. Good guys, you didn't attack us together, but just watched from the side, which shows that the Shimming Empire is not monolithic. Jia Yan knew something. Any force will have internal conflicts. This is especially true for a behemoth like the Shimming Empire. It is normal for the two mainstays of the Shimming Empire to be on opposite sides because of interests or the right to speak. This situation even caused King Gui to be unwilling to pay the price of minor injuries to deal with Jia Yan and the two. After all, look at the problem from their perspective. The devil can at best be regarded as a mighty dragon crossing the river. The lower continent may still be miserable due to the ravages of demons, but this great sun continent seems not to be that miserable. Because the strong ones here are strong enough. When the demons are here, they often reach the critical moment of competition. What they seek is to break through in a hurry and enter the next level. Therefore, it is a matter of course that De Neng does not want to be injured. He weighs the pros and cons. Ding! Jia Yan stretched out his feet and knocked them together with the opponent's slap. Even though the power was reduced by 10 times, Jia Yan still struggled to resist under the superposition of the rules of force, superposition of formations, superposition of time rules, and superposition of the rules of life and death, and the whole person was pushed out for more than 100,000 kilometers. Walk. Jia Yan took advantage of this strength and used the power of his brain waves to violently pull Kalen next to him. Kalen understood it and released a large amount of poisonous mist. The poisonous mist formed a certain kind of passage as before, vaguely distorting the space. With Jia Yan, he suddenly accelerated more than 10 times and escaped directly for an extremely long distance. Humph. Junior, you won't be so lucky next time. Master King Gui's voice roared from behind. The demonic sound is rolling, and the sky and the earth are pale. But the two of them were no longer so afraid. Along with the figures of Master King Gui and the ram-horned creature, they were pulled very far behind. Jia Yan breathed a sigh of relief for the rest of his life, looked at Kalen who was using color mist flying, and couldn't help but laugh. You Kalen, you have such strength, but you didn't hide it before. Both and the other, Your Excellency, Jia Yan's strength is far beyond Kalen's imagination. Are you still willing to cooperate? Kalen chuckled softly, and her words filled Kenki. Both of them showed their true strength, which was another kind of capital for both parties. Kalen thinks Jia Yan has more utilization. And Jia Yan was also deeply impressed by Kalen's superb skills. With her flying skills that could be used in the upper continent, it was similar to escaping in subspace, and he was extremely jealous. Okay, the two continents below will still cooperate. We can work together until the final destination. Jia Yan made a verbal agreement with her. Of course I didn't take it too seriously. After all, the agreement between the strong is only about interests. If it comes to a last resort, whether it is the death of the Taoist friend or the poor Taoist, both Jia Yan and Kalen will do it very neatly. While the two of them were talking, they had already opened up a distance of about 10 billion kilometers. It moved around in the middle and changed several directions. Even if the powerful people behind him come to chase him, it won't be that easy. They are also masters, and there are many ways to erase the traces of aura. No matter how powerful they are, after seeing their specific methods, Jia Yan believes that it should not be so easy to catch them. Besides, it was only a powerful man who took action, and the situation he encountered might be similar to Aoki's. Unless there is a powerful move that can extremely restrain Jia Yan and the two in terms of attributes, in the end, Jia Yan and the two will end up panicking and not choosing the right path. Might as well let them pass. No, my power is falling too fast. Go down and guard the gate for me for a while. I want to take a rest. Good. Kalen's aura has become very weak after traveling tens of billions of kilometers. Jia Yan's eyes flashed and he nodded in agreement. Kalen is completely unafraid of Jia Yan taking advantage of her weakening strength to take advantage of her, which shows that there are other methods. Or he believed that Jia Yan would not take action against his allies at this juncture. This is actually true. One person cannot deal with the power of Aoki. I don't know how many powerful masters there are in this shimming empire. If Kingui has any relatively friendly friends and they attack together, the two of us will not be able to escape. Jia Yan looked at Kalen, who was in a resting state, adjusting her breath slightly in the hot stone forest where she landed. He also lost a lot of strength. But the harvest is also great. Next time if I have a chance, I must try some powerful blood. This blood must be of fire attribute. My fire attribute is not low. In order to deceive others, he had focused all his superficial manifestations on the rules of space and fire. Also made sufficient progress. The high-ranking Master Kingui of the Shimming Empire personally took action, but failed to capture the two flesh and blood demons. This incident immediately had a great impact on the upper-class society of the Shimming Empire. If many people had heard about the devil before, they still looked at it as a joke. So now, when they hear anything about the devil, they become nervous and worry about gains and losses. First, the strength of the demons has reached an extremely powerful level that is beyond the reach of many upper-class people. God knows whether they will approach the areas under their jurisdiction in the future. Secondly, the royal family of the Shimming Empire still has a reward for the two of them, and also forced all the upper-level people below to help the arrest unconditionally. This is a situation where they have to deal with the devil and crisis and risk coexist. With more and more attention, Jia Yan takes Kalen with him, and the two advance and retreat together. Sing loudly and advance vigorously. Soon people who couldn't understand it gradually began to appreciate Zai Mao. These two demons were staring at the Dayang in their Shimming Empire. It is better to say that it is the Dayang within the Shimming Empire. It is better to say that their Shimming Empire is actually an empire built around the Dayang. They are heading to Dayang. Do you want to intercept them? All of a sudden, all kinds of comments and words came pouring out. Should we cut off these two foreign flesh and blood bodies? Should we invite more powerful experts to maintain the empire's face and kill them? Became the focus of discussion. If we didn't think much of the two intruding demons before, then after the two demons escaped from Master Kingui and the Master was unwilling to take action again, the combat power of these two demons was worth the life of a stone. The Empire paid close attention to it. No one wants to put themselves at risk. But we don't want them to come and go freely within the Empire. This would be a slap in the face of the Empire. As I said, let them go to Dayang. God knows if they will fly into the flames when they approach Dayang and die directly under the high temperature of Dayang. Yes, even us Shiming can't get close to Dayang. What else can they do if they go to Dayang? They are just seeking death. How do you know these two demons have other purposes? The royal meeting was noisy, like a busy city block. The last time we had such a quarrel was the last time. The emperor felt a little headache when he saw a group of high-ranking nobles who held one or several views competing with each other. He doesn't understand either. How could this so-called demon turn a blind eye to the self-regarding Shimming Empire in one fell swoop? The prestige of the Shimming Empire suffered a huge blow at this time. Your Majesty, this matter can be big or small. If we don't publicize it, no one will know about it. Are you sure? I have the information. There were two groups of heavenly demons who entered the hinterland of our Shimming Empire before. Although I don't know why they disappeared, but over and over again, if a few more groups of people come, our Shimming Empire will lose face. Where is it? The Emperor asked bitterly. The speaker below was suddenly speechless. This is a very serious topic for the Shimming Empire, and it is never something that two people can argue about. The Emperor's actual power was not as high as imagined. He had no choice but to endure the arguments below. But the appearance of a voice brought all the quarrels to an abrupt end. A creature with a goat's horns on its head appeared among many upper-class people. I believe that these people should be arrested, but not too urgently, otherwise they will backfire on the empire itself. Master! The Master has appeared. Everyone was in ecstasy. In this shimming empire, if there is a group of people whose status can never be shaken, it is the existence of these masters. Their strength is equivalent to mighty. In a country like Shiming Empire where the strong are respected, there is no limit to one's status. Master, do you know why these demons come? They are heavenly demons and so-called competitors. Long before the rise of our Shiming Empire, they have been using the ascending passage of the Great Sun to enter the high-rise continent. Huh? They actually want to use Dayang's ascending channel. The Emperor's face changed slightly. The expressions of many nobles and upper-class people changed. The reason why the Shiming Empire is able to sit firmly in the hinterland of Dayang continent and occupy this area of Dayang is because they have people above. But now, this group of demons from the outside world want to enter the upper continent through their royal passage. This is like challenging the imperial power. Master, can we intercept it? And what do they mean by competition? The master Yang Jiao slightly glanced at the group of experts around him. After a pause, he conveyed the information he knew. After a while, a pin drop could be heard in the entire parliament hall. I see. The emperor finally broke his silence. I also said that our Shiming Empire has lasted for a long time and is a country with history. But long before our Shiming Empire was established, these demons used the mother of our Dayang Empire to move up to higher-end continents. He shook his head inexplicably, and then uttered, Master, tell me, if we go against them and, what will happen? It sounds like these demons all have backgrounds. The master of Sheephorn said coldly, it's nothing to kill 1 or 2 people, but if we go against them collectively. He sighed, I'm afraid it's the day when our Shiming Empire collapsed. The inheritance method of these demons has lasted for an unknown number of years. I'm afraid it's not even 1,000,000 years, and I'm afraid even I can't resist it if there are people standing behind me. Masters, and from my inquiries, I learned that the strength of this group of heavenly demons has increased extremely rapidly. Not to mention our Shiming Empire, even in the upper continent, there are certain superpowers that have been defeated by the heavenly demons in the past hundreds of thousands of years. They destroyed. The upper continental forces were destroyed by the demon? This. For a moment, the emperor and others, who knew how powerful the upper continent was, were silent. Not long after, information came from the top of the Shiming Empire. They gave in. In the days to come, the demons will be monitored more often than arrested. If they commit any illegal acts, the most they will do is drive them away and let them leave the Shiming Empire as soon as possible. However, regarding the ascending channel, Shiming Empire is still stingy. It doesn't say where it is, nor how it passes. If you can find it, you win, but if you can't find it, we won't tell you. This is the last bit of courage. Jia Yan, is this Dayang? After a lot of hard work, Jia Yan and the two finally spent about a month and a half to reach the nearest Dayang in the Shiming Empire. As they got closer, they realized that this great sun was different from what they initially thought. Jia Yan originally thought that the sun was a spherical luminous body similar to the sun. But when he arrived, he found that he was wrong. This thing is so huge that it can no longer be compared to any specific thing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3487. It's really too big, about 1 light year in size. It's bigger than any star in the known universe. It has an unknown amount of internal power, but the surface temperature is only a few 100,000 degrees. No wonder the ground all around was burned to that scene. Jia Yan had already felt the size of Dayang in the outside world. The closer he got, the more shocked he was by the size of this thing. Apart from the universe itself, this is the largest individual thing that Jia Yan has seen for the first time in his long life. Of course, We have to leave the mainland behind. Why is this thing square? Jia Yan complained strangely. From the understanding of cosmic creatures, it is natural and scientific that huge things gradually become round due to their own gravity. The larger something is, the rounder it will become. As for this sun, I am afraid that its weight has already exceeded that of most black holes, but it has not turned into a black hole, and it does not even have a circular appearance, but an upright square block. After all, this is another world, anything can happen. So we are slow, but very slow. But thinking about it, I still said it. What? Is he willing to tell you the area where the descending passage is? Oh? Please tell me, sir. It will definitely be of no use to you. You will leave immediately. Kalen was overjoyed. The official said those words, saluted again, and quickly went in. There's nothing wrong with it. I just gave us a small amount of information. You also know the internal things, but the 7 of them must be able to threaten Xiaoneng. Even if there are no other risks outside, you can still be safe. That's right, remember it, if there is no other similar demon coming, just repeat what you said to us. Oh? That one must be the little police officer. How dare you come into contact with you? If you pass all the subsequent levels and lose the opportunity in such a big place, it will really make you regret it for the rest of your life. So I'm afraid we are still talking about being in the first echelon. The temperature is very low, and the journey ahead will be painful. It may take years or even decades. Yeah. It's gone bad. Bad guy, it's really that foreigner, it must be someone else. I'm afraid they all think it's normal to come out of this place, right? It may be bad in the short term, but over time, even competitors like Lu Xing and Kalen will be overwhelmed. If you can die trapped here, you have to try. Lu Xing, is there no trace of fighting on his end? No matter what, you have always encountered the existence of breath loss in the past. Even if you beat him, you still can't running. In fact, if they had to walk along Dayang, the distance would be far beyond the distance they came from. That was not nearly 2 months before the fight with Aoki's servant began. Standing behind a luminescent body that was brighter than light, Kalen became suspicious. But I must go out to rest, God knows, there will be no chance to retreat for the 7th time. Dayang also nodded and said, you think there is still no certain credibility. Judging from the recent reaction of the Shimming Empire, we are afraid of your competitors. It is said that in the border areas, there are no more other competitors have broken through the barriers. I am afraid that even the weak Stone Life Empire is feeling the constant pressure from competitors. The 7 people immediately hesitated again, turned around and ran quickly to the left. Dayang spoke up. The low temperature inside Xiaoyang is comparable to the temperature in the middle of multiple stars. But I really want those 2 demons to cause trouble in their jurisdiction. It should make you too safe. Let's go and find this ascending passage. The 2 of them looked at each other, and in what looked like a sea of fire, they were flying around like flies. Dayang was not confident in his speculation, but he suddenly felt confident and realized that the energy was the same. Dayang and Kalen originally wanted to spend less time in this town. Little man, if you tell the information, that would be bad, right? I'm not afraid to take risks if it's worth it. Hey, I thought there was no such a reasonable person outside the Shimming Empire. At Dayang Pavilion, he asked, is my information trustworthy? Kalen seemed to be thinking about something, and finally nodded in response, Bao, it's just like what he said, but you will be the first one. Let him explore the way. After they approached the edge of the sun, they began to wander along the edge of the sun and began to search for the ascending channel. Dayang is a careless person when it comes to things like that, and I don't have the unique perception of energy that Degan Aaron has. The difference is that it belongs to the leading stage and is extremely prominent. Kalen looked at the approaching sheriff with a playful expression. You just admire the speed of Dayang's search. Combining your respective intelligence and threading the threads will definitely lead to nothing. Little man, let's go. I'm afraid there are not many other competitors who are far behind. You two heavenly demon pavilion masters, do you know that there is nothing you need help from your superior? Bad, you go first. You search all the way on the right, searching like an ant-shaped carpet. You encountered 2 attacks like bolides, but you haven't felt a very weak life fluctuation. The fluctuation is too weak. Lie, at least I am above you and others. You wanted to fight against the weak in that kind of place, so you entered and exited early. The 2 competitors suddenly felt the difficulty of that level. Dayang took out the map given by the sheriff and waited. The retreat point marked below was close to that area. Crash into it. On the left, you encountered several areas of cold vacuum. There were no obvious signs of fighting between weak people outside. Similar to him, you saw a monster as big as a mountain, and you wanted to fight with the opponent in the sea of fire. Fight and you will come back. At that time, the possible leading advantage will become the same as that of many competitors. Others must be unlucky and find the downward channel first, and our advantage will be gone. While Dayang was lingering in an inn in a city far away from Xiaoyang, discussing how to search for a descending passage, a hidden local official approached our residence. So you guys want to give it a try? If he kills one, there will be no more. After killing one group, he will be attacked by another group. Moreover, the improvement of our strength is magical. In the next few days, we were still a group of strong men, but in the blink of an eye, we became a far superior small force. The existence of an extremely small power was instantly overthrown. The direction is exactly where Xiaoyang is. There was an astonishing cold wave on the feet of the 2 people. The temperature was at least 10 times lower than the surface of the film, which meant that there were no astonishing low temperatures of hundreds of thousands or even more than 1,000,000 degrees. First of all, there are weak people who can withstand low temperatures inside Xiaoyang. The information is correct. You all feel that something is the same, but Dayang points to a certain direction and says that the energy here is the same. We return to Xiaoyang's location. This is natural. If you believe in its empty words, it will lead to your own destruction. A few days passed by quickly. The second is the lower continent, which is inaccessible to the middle continent like Xiaoyang. They know better that we are being treated badly, so even though the cities we pass through often recognize our identity, they are less likely to look on and let us consume and leave. Yes, no matter how well I get along with the 2 of you, it is still possible for me to directly betray the country. At least I will give them some information. Whether I can find the location of the ascending passage through your clues depends on your excellency's own abilities. Jia Yan sighed. Within the entire Shiming Empire, it can be said that many low-level officials know about the competitors. Kalen felt the emotion of the departing bureaucrat and still didn't believe it. The most basic approach is for you and him to take a risk, work together to capture a local weakling somewhere, and ask for information, but I'm afraid that our strength is far beyond imagination, and we can also guarantee whether we live alone, for sure living in groups, the safety factor will increase slightly. Even if we are the top masters at the front level of Territory Lord, we cannot withstand such low temperatures for a long time. As early as during the process, I sensed several strange energy points in Xiaoyang. The total of the 2 people. If I believe you, give this place a try. Don't think that you can find something very powerful. The other competitors have no means. Even he, I am afraid, will not have the chance to find this place even if he is exploring, but it will take less time. You must be wrong about what you expected. The map this person gave me has been too long and has lost its accuracy. I was slightly firm for a moment, and then Kalen's gaze fell directly into the eyes of Xiaoyang. Yes. If it were you, even if it took you a while to find such an entrance, you would still be able to feel the existence of that unique energy after bringing it up with correct information and using the poisonous mist to wrap up the small piece of Xiaoyang. It just takes at least several times the time. Noticing what Lu Xing meant, Kalen nodded animatedly. Dayang took stock of the situation. The two of them went back and forth, returning to the same path they had taken one after another. So when I got Dayang's voice, I kept it hidden. Looking at time, the distance between you and the life is too small. That is to say, no matter whether you are walking from the right or the left, you will not be intercepted by the local fire sea life at a similar distance. When you also hit the inside of Xiaoyang, you felt that you had hit some kind of transparent film, and Lu Xing was standing close behind you. Puff. Yes, there are no clues at all. It's a collision. You still remember that there are few unique things about Xiaoyang. Look back. Dayang stopped Kalen's actions. We only feel that the temperature inside our bodies is slowly increasing. I must have gone out. Can I ever come back? The sheriff must have told you that the temperature of this little sun is extremely low, and its structure is weird. There should be no unique laws affecting it. You must be fully prepared. And it is said that no other competitor has retreated into Xiaoyang as early as after us. Now it is not known whether it has reached the lower continent. Wu Tiaoyu saw that this person's mood was also very stable. After all, he was betraying the country. The one who made contact was the first one. And there is only one of those weak ones, and their strength should be below the front level of the territory lord. And because they are native life forms living in the Sea of Little Yang Fire, they do not have the natural advantage of being able to withstand the cold, so against the 7 people of Dayang, it may be difficult to defeat them. Gotta go bad. The name of Heavenly Demon is now gradually becoming popular, and our actions in the upper continent and the past history of confrontations with various small forces are also known by fewer and fewer people in the Shimming Empire. It has almost been heard that no one has wiped out all the demons, or even expelled all the demons at that time. But after flying in the Zhouleng area for about half a day, the two of them returned to the original agreed place, each looking a little tired. That outside is one of the headless points of energy you feel along the way. For me, a risky move is something I dare to do, but if I do it now, there will be no corresponding reward. We spent several days without a clue, but when we saw Niu Xiaoyang, we still had the idea of finding the lower arrow passage that was within reach. The two of them decided for a moment that they had an idea. In the direction of the city where the 7 people left, the sheriff who had revealed information to Dayang and his superiors were watching from a distance. Therefore, Dayang and the others did not light up. Kalen came up with an idea. In fact, the way you two searched for the ascending passage is wrong. The descending passage will be around Xiaoyang. In fact, the 7 of you have to taste the low temperature of Xiaoyang to have a chance to find the descending passage. But whether you two dare to take that risk or not, it's up to you two. You can also say less about other information. Everything depends on your own decision. I'm afraid this official knows Lu Xing and knows that I am the person in charge of the 2 demons. The upper mind said, if those demons retreated to safety and were not dead, how could they reappear to cause trouble for you? The superior asked with a strange expression. Of course, the key lies in the competition on the top level of Xiaolu further ahead. The two of them did not fully trust the sheriff. Before getting the tip from the manager, the 7 of us returned the favor and left the place slowly. Yes, Shang Guan is the peace officer of that city, and it is your job to protect the environment and the people, so you want to reach a secret agreement with the 2 of them later. If they are willing to leave, you can't reveal a few ascending passages. Give them the information. It must be said that there are no restrictions and there is no wrong goal. A bad dependent female, you can go as you please. Is he sure? How come you feel something is the same? There are not many Firas like that official in the Shimming Empire. What we ask is that if the demons want to approach our jurisdiction, whether it is in terms of their political achievements or personal safety. It is said that communication and contact with demons is the worst result. Are you here too? Why don't you go out and rest for a while before looking for it? Okay, let's go to the left side of your exploration. But even the continent is suspended in mid-air, and the square dayang is nothing. Often these forces that dare to fight against the demons end up being annihilated. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3488. Jia Yan is an evolved beast and has a high tolerance for temperature. He also has defensive methods such as formations and exoskeletons, but he has to heat the internal temperature of his body to more than thousands of degrees, which has made him quite uncomfortable. Kaylin probably felt even worse. She could only use her poisonous mist to wrap her body, and the million-degree heat almost burned her internal body. The colorful body also produced a light and dark light, as if it was about to go out. Bear. That's the flames over there. It's very hot. It should be the energy left over from the fight between the two masters. It is indeed the traces of the battle between two fire masters. From the looks of it, they must have understood the existence of fire rules, and one of them has amazing fire rules. For experts, a lot can be read by seeing the traces of fighting. After feeling the place where they were fighting for a moment, their eyes lit up slightly in the flames. A burning flame was noticed by two people. There was a pool of blood inside. Don't forget, his fire rules are about to be converted successfully. If there is this blood-stained flame, even if it is accurate, I will not have a chance to see the true meaning of the fire rules. That was a symptom of my strength reaching its peak. Go to hell. In an instant, my power was displayed to its limit in every detail, and I heard that the momentum was extremely strong. Otherwise, I would be at the same level, but a little capable person. The long dragon was like a straight spear, piercing straight towards Jia Yan, and its long flaming hair was about to bite Yu Xiong's body. The raptor swings its tail. Bypassing a scorching cold area in the fire, that area is like a mountain to the inner world. I snorted hotly. As a creature born in flames, my sense of direction has always been far beyond the inner realm. Even though there are no traps from Jia Yan outside the realm, I still have my eye on a direction without stopping. In fact, my field is indeed enough to change the state of a weak person of the same level. It could also be said that it was not blood, but a substance that was hotter than flames. Because the power of his blow should be too great, but it could leave some injuries on the opponent's body. His strength has been permanently solidified by you at its strongest state, so stop struggling. Rather, flesh and blood life has its merits, but outside of the other person's growth environment, Jia Yan has very little restraint. I faced the opponent's sea of fire and descended, and waves of blue light fell on my feet. 7 of you are expected to die today, please get out of the way. And now the power that traps the opponent in the field is the yin-yang formation of the 4 classics. But I'm much bigger than the opponent, and the speed-up level of my sudden acceleration is far higher than that of the opponent. That's why Jia Yan has only now gradually made new discoveries. But it has been able to change the situation of the battle. I want you to wait until you die, but you two are still a little behind. Both low-level players have strong strength and aura, but you can handle them one-on-one. I'm afraid we don't have any fire skills. With the home field advantage, I'm afraid it will be very safe, so be careful. Jia Yan answered again. But his body was clearly in its weakest state. The other party was also startled by Jia Yan's momentum, but he understood immediately before he felt threatened. Jia Yan immediately grasped that advantage. The fire dragon creature only felt that it had released its own domain in it, and there was no way to offset the power of Jia Yan's domain. My power of fire rules has also become stronger. Because the technique I use is the domain power superimposed on the power of several rules. You believe it, if his power is an illusion. The area of the opponent's head that had just been exploded with flames, but the flame blood in his hand appeared, and the flames that exploded were slowly surrounded by the surrounding flames, automatically filling it up. Before the transformation of the entire body of the formation was successful, the special power of the formation in my body was still the very special yin-yang formation. It had not been planned by Jia Yan as the power of the formation, but was in the true sense yin-yang formation. Moreover, Jia Yan also superimposed those several powers together and turned them into the weakest area today. The reason why I used that move just now was because I saw Jia Yan himself. I was afraid that Jia Yan would take the opportunity to attack when I used the move. When the two dragons saw this, they looked at each other. The enemies they had just fought to death now started to cooperate. Now that I am in the formation, I may use the yin-yang formation to fight against the enemy, so what I use casually is a special version of the power of the formation. My face darkened, and when I saw that the environment around me was still completely white, I identified a location and flew there. It was over my head, but I was slightly surprised. Those are two living beings that are basically flesh and blood, and can even be said to exist substantively. Extremely weird. Sure enough, it's here. Bad. Look at you eating him. The attacks from those coming there have too little effect on me. A long dragon tail shot against the power of the formation, but was firmly resisted by it. Jia Yan had an expression on his face and threw out the power of the formation with one hand. If Jia Yan dodges, the attack will definitely fall to the power of the domain in the future. He may be able to crush the domain with one blow, but it is destined to cause damage to the domain. But my strength is limited to this matter. However, when he was one step behind, Jia Yan calmly rolled out a roll of the burning flame blood. Jia Yan also complained about the opponent's slow thinking. Even though I am a special version, the strength that truly blossoms in Jia Yan's hands is earth-shattering. The opponent obviously suffered a certain amount of energy loss from the previous enemies, so there was not a trace of energy left in his movements. Kalen's speed was extremely slow, and a piece of poisonous mist bloomed from the body surface, and even the local flames were swallowed up and retreated into it. The smell was audible for a while, which was a chemical reaction between toxins and fire. The two of them followed the traces of the fight, and for a moment they heard only the roar of a sea of fire. The dragon roared. Jia Yan wants to be right because of that fleeting opportunity. Let's see if he can trap you. After their eyes lit up, the two of them flew in the direction of the traces of the battle. The right time and place are all yours, but Jia Yan's emotions are still intense. There are no rules of time, no rules of life and death, and with the rules of force, it is possible to time lock the strongest person at the same level. But that's all in Kalen's calculations. And Jia Yan's opponent is naturally another person whose strength should still be at its peak. From the outside, we look like two giant dragon-like blood-red creatures, but a closer look reveals that our bodies are not composed of balls of solidified flames at all. Both sides hold similar thoughts, and their words are mere speculation. When they meet, it is a confrontation. Clang. What is that? It's bad. My consciousness within the domain space of that circle was like a wolf waiting to be hunted, fully prepared for a killing blow at any time and at any time. After bypassing the opponent's head, a circle attack of formation landed in mid-air, exploding a fire under the opponent's head. Jia Yan's original intention was to face off against his opponent who was in the right place at the right time. With the blessing of the yin-yang formation, Jia Yan's whole body accelerated sharply. The dragon's heart skipped a beat and it swung its long tail violently. The shocking weather force brewed by fire and fire appeared fiercely in the white space, pressing overwhelmingly towards Jia Yan's direction. Both sides have the same body structure. Roar. The yin-yang formation was fully deployed. But to attract Jia Yan to show up. I still don't know if there is no place so full of flames in the last small continent. It is said that the flames and blood stains are not my first harvest of fire rules. It makes sense to call again. Bad smell. Puff puff. What's your name? Kalen. He tried his best to protect himself and deal with that guy. After you take care of it, go and help him. Don't be fooled by the special edition. The one who comes here, his attacks are boring, but they are effective for you, so die. The power of those formations were like formation talismans, pressing down on the small sea of fire behind the eyes in one breath, blocking the small piece of flame power spewed out by the opponent. You must know that I still belong to the Domain Lord level. Jia Yan went around and avoided the long dragon in front of him. Although neither of them had the ability to pass directly, it was absolutely necessary, like breaking through a mountain. Yu Xiong retreated into a tangle with the enemy who was in a bad state behind him. That's not forcing Jia Yan. It depends on whether Jia Yan fights with him personally or whether the power of the domain causes injuries. Roar. Jia Yan snorted. What happened? Jia Yan's figure suddenly appeared in the field. Jia Yan's voice was mighty and powerful, resounding from everywhere in the white circle of heaven and earth. Although I haven't used the domain much before reaching the early stage of Domain Lord, the power of the domain is not one of the minor directions. Bad. That nobleman, who is of the same rank, actually dares to fight you head on, right? In an instant, it changes direction and speeds up. A white and white circle suddenly appeared in the sky and the earth. In other words, my attack was almost effective. The two of them looked at each other and rushed towards this direction without any joy in their hearts. The special formation is no different from my own yin-yang formation. Your strength? Are you kidding me? Why would my power be controlled by an outsider? If his power is from some domain, wait until I break it before I can argue with him. Groan. Directly envelope the opponent. Instead, a weaker murderous intention arose. This long dragon creature seems to be trying to break through the power of the field in one go. Is it the primary level of Domain Lord or the current pre-Domain Lord level? Since it is the Domain Lord level, it should be done at the Domain Lord level. Rumble, rumble. It was the injured person who wanted to devour Kalen. Yin-Yang array. For us, the life forms from the other world are also very bad food, and they are also two low-level players with outstanding strength. If they are devoured, they may have a finishing touch to the power of our rules. After only half a step forward, the material exploded. Roar. Even if I am in the strongest condition just now, this is what he can make a decision about. Ouch. Such a domain power actually locked my power at the moment when I was running out of strength. When I came in pursuit, my speed suddenly dropped a bit. But in my heart, it is definitely possible that I will cherish heroes because of this. It's as if I'm in the other person's realm. Jia Yan's feet touched each other slightly, and the blue brilliance of the formations was extremely bright in the land of flames. Jia Yan and the two of them are still running out of time. Who dare to interfere in the battle between two fire masters? Over there, let's go take a look. Found it? The power of that domain is too strange. Huh? What is that? I thought I was stronger than the other dragon, so I chose Kalen, who had a slightly stronger aura. In that small patch of sunshine, a unique life form was actually formed, and its strength reached the level of a domain lord. The two long dragons were originally in a life or death duel, but when both Jia Yan and Kalen expressed hostility and showed extremely weak auras, they agreed to stop fighting and each found an opponent. Although the lock time is not long. You bad flame dragon. As expected, some of the low-level players at that level are fools. Is there any bad intention in that? That is not my domain power. Although Kalen didn't trust Jia Yan's strength, she immediately felt a little confident, but there was no point in believing. Nodding her head would be her own fault. Even if he could be on par with the opponent here, he could do so casually and with caution. Damn it, did you use poison? But for a moment, was the only way to break through the crumbling formation field, and it made me feel that my own power had lost any trace of stagnation. Otherwise, let the opponent run away. Such a place of flames is in the opponent's home field and cannot be attacked by us at any time and anywhere. Jia Yan and the two said they were definitely dragged to death here. Warm bodies. When the positive and negative forces surging on the surface of this material surged up, the other party's expression suddenly changed. The bad guy, even the psychedelic power outside the realm can't stop him. In this case, the 7 creatures who had just approached the confrontation were noticed by the 2 creatures, and we all turned around with angry eyes at the same time. It is more cost-effective to fight openly than to be trapped in the opponent's domain power and gradually lose your strength. The long dragon's face was startled, and then he was about to blow away the circle of heaven and earth behind his eyes. The colorful orchid at the other end is even more conspicuous. The colorful colors are like pearls outside. I am afraid that the 2 long dragons have never seen such dazzling colors in their lives, and they were dazzled by it. At the same time, inside the subspace, a lot of things came out of the subspace and floated behind the opponent's eyes. Boom! I saw lightning and thunder in the sky. Domain power, whether from the beginning or now, is the weakest power in our level. How did they retreat? A master is injured. But when I hit it, it didn't break apart. The 2 giant flame dragons were both less than 20,000 kilometers long. Their eyes suddenly lit up before the bodies of Yu Xiong and the 7 others. Have seen enough, has this girl done it? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 3489. The huge explosion enveloped the opponent completely. That's not enough. Jia Yan's face was calm, and with a flick of his foot, a large amount of formation power broke through the flames, moving towards the area enveloped by the explosion, and continuously attached to the explosion area until the entire area was completely blocked. Soon, a seemingly injured long dragon stretched out its claws, just about to scratch the large blue circle of light that blocked the surrounding area. Burst! Jia Yan roared lightly without changing his expression. I saw the whole world in front of me blooming with a large ray of light. For a moment, the extremely dazzling flames all around were covered up. The bright and dazzling explosion light spread across the area. Although the crack closed in a moment, and even the flames were able to escape into subspace, there was still a weapon missing between my feet. That foot slowly contained 2 kinds of yin and yang power. Well, I retreated into some kind of weird formation passage. Well, there should be a mistake in the ascending passage. Judging from the direction, it's not going down. If it's G, it might be a killing move. For the weak, the importance of life is not the most important thing we value. But Jia Yan soon made me realize what it was. But at this time, he still endured it and looked at the long dragon life form that left. But the demon masters of the past day were all very strange and powerful, so I dared to ask them directly. At that stage, it still can't bring me anything that will weaken my combat power. I nodded and bowed with a smile. Puff! Jia Yan Kalin was all serious and just jumped up from under the opponent's body. You two, we are about to reach the place you know is suspected of being the ascending channel. But you can also guarantee that if you think there is no problem, you will go to test it again, and outside and inside, you are no longer there is no one to trust anymore. If it were not here then, you would have no choice but to let the 2 of you slaughter them. It flew to the middle of the dragon's body. This other flame dragon was so frightened that he possessed him. But I forgot that Jia Yan's purpose was to kill those 7. After repeatedly beating the opponent to injury, Jia Yan was not willing to let go of such a bad opportunity. The hot words retreated into the other party's mind, and the long dragon shuddered violently. It was obvious that the surrounding temperature had become lower due to our fight, but it still felt like a basin of cold water was poured on my heart. The injured Chang Long nodded. Jia Yan seemed to have finally lost the idea of compassion. Originally, we were the two overlords in that area. The two sides have been changing identities in battles and transactions. That time was also an example. The two sides were originally competing with each other, but then the losing side took over. 1,000 years away, you can do whatever the other party tells you to do. When the first day passed and Jia Yan looked at the long queue of people on the way with a warm smile, the other party was no longer trembling with fear and was cursing in his heart. Oh, I did meet someone who had his eyes open. Ah! Spit it out directly. That is the strength of our field. Bad magical life forms, are these people in the fire sea all of their race? It is obvious whether to pass Xiaojun now or then. Let Jia Yan and the two fly off my head, step on top of my head, and soar in the sea of fire. This large dragon creature was not even as strong as the galaxy level. He shook his dragon tail bitterly and retreated into a pitch-white area. Outside the world of flames, there are almost no real objects. At the last moment, Xiaojun's foot drew a crack in space. Although my opponent on Jia Yan's side had not retreated into a precarious situation after counting the injuries caused by the explosions, I still stubbornly broke out of the sea of fire, and then sacrificed my life with another person. The power of the fire tornado field is exactly the same. I looked back with an ugly face. Such an uproar even affected Kalen and the injured dragon who were fighting in the distance, and the entire battlefield was pushed thousands of kilometers away. Come on, he calls the child out. You let me try. Worry, I have no means to protect his child from death. Jia Yan and Kalen found it a bit eye-opening, thinking that the world is so small, how strange it is. During that process, Jia Yan was always enveloped by the other party as if he did whatever he wanted. Otherwise, no matter how little you say, it will be useful. At the same time, he used his mental power to restrain the blood flames that were scattered everywhere. Wow, he has a bad, cruel heart, you. Back off, if you can survive, my ancestor will give him a small reward. The explosion just now was merciless at all. Until I disappeared, my whole body flickered and I retreated into the subspace. Yes, there are quite a few of your direct children. Even in that world of flames where flames are everywhere and explode anytime and anywhere, it is a rare sound. A large sea of fire enveloped the entire flame area. Descending passage. Well. The other party was aware of it at this time, and rushed forward with a panicked expression. It's settled. You're really poor after living that kind of life. You'll leave something behind after you die, but our blood is of no use. Just before turning to another direction. Where to go? The original so-called blue defense is an effect that has not yet reached its extreme. If it reaches the extreme, maybe everything will return to its original purpose and return to the original white color. Jia Yan was surrounded by a tornado of flames. The entire sea of fire resounded with the roar of Jia Yan's opponent, and the roar contained an extremely painful meaning. Xiaojun turned his eyes and waved away the flames that filled his hands. With the long dragon creature's eyes splitting as if it had hit a wall, Kalen Furyui's voice sounded in front of it. Jia Yan's words were false, and his judgment was affected by my look. But the old god said calmly, that's right, the ascending passage, even if the people of the flames have not inherited the text, but they are so weak, they can always get it, only some clues are needed. If you want to say that you know it, you should argue with him about it now and only give him a few options. This is the time of his death. I saw Jia Yan explore his feet, and my signature toes changed into a deep blue color, so blue that it was almost white. Jia Yan's movements were able to hide Chang Glong's attention. There is a price to pay for looking down on any competitor. From the beginning to the end. A small amount of flames swept up and turned into fire tornadoes. Jia Yan's joking voice made the other party's expression twitch wildly, but he still resisted the urge to complain and laughed repeatedly. What I said next was not to tear the opponent into pieces, but to say that I had definitely killed Kalen, and I didn't have a chance to survive. I'm afraid I have never seen a low-level player who can retreat into the subspace in the Sea of Fire. The place we came to was suspected of being a descending channel, which was a fault in a sea of fire. Changlong was relatively simple and made the following remarks. Moreover, Xiaojun and the two also heard very strangely that the Sea of Fire creatures had no gender distinction, so they must have made some kind of listen to each other's words bet, especially not to mate. There is nothing more important than one's wealth and one's life. For a while, Changlong made a decision, but when Jia Yan and Kalen looked closely at each other, he still sighed and shouted. In the subspace of that small continent, without the interference of the formation, the strength would only increase 10 times, maybe not dozens of times. Jia Yan's eyes have been falling on the body of the long dragon creature. Friend, please be merciful, you. Have any of their elders or low-level players in the clan tried the so-called ascending passage? Your Majesty is too seriously injured, so you have to fight stubbornly. Otherwise, if you really kill your Majesty, won't you cause discord between the two clans? The winner is naturally a female, while the loser becomes a female and gives birth to a child for the other party. 7th, after more than a week, there is no need for him to survive anymore. My injured body and the male and female creatures behind my eyes were enough for me to drink from a bottle. When the mosquitoes joined the fight, I was not lucky enough to deal with it. It was so complicated to achieve what they wanted, which made Jia Yan and the two men feel relieved. Otherwise, if we really want to have a stalemate, we have to go up. It was as if the other party heard those words for the first time. That's actually a thing that attacks the soul? It's bad. You two, I am willing to disobey your orders and let them drive you. Puff. I smiled bitterly, and then my eyes suddenly became determined. That was the new weapon Jia Yan developed before he could make any slight improvement under the yin-yang formation. To kill Kalen, I have to move slowly. Otherwise, there are mosquito creatures that have become clearer in the battle here, and I will have free hands to deal with myself. Magical weapon. You are in the limelight, otherwise with all your strength, you can kill the injured dragon behind your eyes with accuracy. Ancestor, you. The weak are willing to do anything to save their lives. Until the 8th day. Jia Yan was inside the subspace, and he felt tremendous pressure as soon as he retreated. You are not a competitor by nature. His face became ferocious when the fire tornado was about to attack him. Gudu. Judging from my intermittent introduction, that sea area belongs to the two of us. Part 7, find the ascending passage within 8 days, and you will drain half of his blood before letting him go. That's all. Wrong, it was Flame's face that became even redder. When? The low hand obviously didn't want to be willing to do anything, and even wanted to die. The bad thing is that in the case of hand contact, we have to spend less energy on protecting the temperature, and the rate of temperature rise is slightly slower. The scene on the 7th day still passed like this. Moreover, it is a formation magic weapon that has no resistance to flames. 1. Find the ascending channel within 1 day, and you can let him leave if you have the conditions. Changlong's expression turned ugly again. Do you know you will lose as soon as it's over? I knew that the great flesh and blood creature behind that eye really wanted to kill me. In 1 day, even if I vaguely have no idea about the so-called descending channel, that little time is enough for what I can do. It's too late for me to rush over with all my strength. Your Excellency, if you want to escape, don't forget that you are a vegetarian. Jia Yan and Kalen looked at each other. Otherwise, the power of the domain and other forces will be triggered, swallowing me whole and retreating into it. The other party's face turned pale for a while. According to what the pavilion said, I will ride for you for a while and help you find the ascending passage out of here. I know that person really knows something about the ascending passage. What is that? Since your Excellency is grateful, I can only ask your Majesty to go and die. The temperature in the land of fire was getting lower and lower. Not to mention Kalin, even Xiaojun felt that he was supporting Sheiju. Die. A very small number of local weaklings, as long as they master the power of the domain, will master the power of the fire tornado, because we have no fewer choices. The long dragon creature looked slightly shocked. Before he finished speaking, Jia Yan's toe exuding coldness pierced the opponent's body again, nailing my body into a flame. Amidst the roar of the mountains, you have to feel that he is going in circles. If there is not even the slightest sign, he will doubt you, and his head will fall slower than the one just now. Kalin's colorful figure became darker in front of her. Suddenly, a large dragon flew out of the sea of fire without trembling. A cat cries over a mouse's fake mercy. The other party may not have any weaker means. But that's because Jia Yan has already given instructions, just let you drag him. Yes. Bear, bear, bear. I can live solely because of my rough skin and thick flesh. Kalin's partner was suddenly startled. He didn't even have the intention to tangle with Kalin anymore. He just took advantage of the force of pushing away and stepped backwards, about to retreat into the large sea of fire behind him. 8th, find the lower arrow passage within a week. He is afraid that he will be disabled for the rest of his life. Very eye-catching. Back off. Chang Glong's strength was also something to behold. I violently unleashed all my strength, and the color of the world suddenly changed. He wanted to say something, but it was too late. His body retreated into a blazing posture like a 7-week flame. When did he set up the field? Bao Hao, you must bring 7 people to the descending passage within 8 days. What? Kalin said lightly. A feeling of creepiness came over me. So when Xiaojun took out something that clearly belonged to the category of weapons, the other party actually recognized it. The words are speculative. A small piece of poisonous fog unexpectedly locked the entire area. Even my old opponents who were weaker than me died at the hands of this mosquito creature. Just now, it seemed that Jia Yan had always been at a disadvantage, and there was something wrong with Kalin. The special thing about that big clock burst out with unprecedented morning bells and evening drums. You also know what the descending passage is outside, but children who don't set fire to the sea are often swallowed by the animals, and no one can come out. So you judge that it may lead to another world, but there is no way to judge whether it is. It's the downward path they're looking for. I feel a lot of pressure too. Poison collar. He can guarantee that with the convenience of his local creatures, as long as he retreats into the sea of fire, Jia Yan and the two of them will be able to find me even if they have great hands and eyes. How could the other party listen to Jia Yan's words? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3490. As long as it is a passage connected to subspace, Jia Yan is sure that even if something goes wrong, he can exit in time. Suddenly I knew something. Brother Jia Yan, how do you feel? Kalin knew what Jia Yan was doing, and when he exited the subspace, he immediately stepped forward to ask. Yes, it should be an ascending passage. At least it's something related. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, I'll have the means to come back and kill this guy. Good. Kalin nodded. The expression of Chang Long next to him suddenly changed. But before that, Your Excellency, you have forgotten something, right? I haven't forgotten, right? Half of the blood, this. Who is he? That's really a descending passage. Brother Daxian, does he think you were slow or fast when you climbed to the lower level that time? Although you are the kind of female that doesn't behave or roll around, it means you are unpopular. Fine. The Daxian's heart was beating wildly, but on the surface he was very emotional. There are countless ferocious beasts on the ground, and there are not even dinosaur-like creatures walking around in 7 places with my huge body. The situation is weaker than the person. Kalen also thought of something and told Master Daxian. The two of them became vigilant and moved forward. 2 points close together. Understood. According to the intelligence we have received, there should be few groups of people who can surpass you. However, if we retreat into Xiaoyang, we may not be as fast as you. Moreover, if we encounter a low-handed player like a little dragon just now, we will definitely be able to defeat you. It will take longer than you. After all, your talents and abilities are just bad at restraining the native fire sea creatures, and others will say bad things. Kalen shook her head fiercely and smiled bitterly. Daxian Pavilion, you are really trying to bluff you. You also know that many competitors like you have bad family backgrounds. There are no low-level players outside the family, and your family is not low-level either. Hand, this is your great-grandfather. My old man came to the front in the next small competition. Although he won in the end, he also made it out of the outside world alive. I am not telling you the information about that outside world. As expected, there was a huge loss of blood, and I felt like my energy was like a gossamer. Puff. Forward. I'll do it myself, I'll do it myself. Who? A male, a female, and 2 small creatures of different flesh and blood suddenly appeared in the depths of the mountains and old forests. Daxian and Kalen pricked up their ears and listened honestly. A ray of light does not appear outside the deep mountains and old forests. The trees around him seemed short and tall, but they were over 700,000 kilometers away, while the tree nearby was directly over 1 million kilometers away. Sweep the feet. There are not many small continents with low-level life forms that are more than 10,000 kilometers away, and there are no trees that are more than 1,000,000 kilometers away. The great immortal had a slightly different look, and said calmly, "Thank you, Jia Yan, for your advice. It's Guo Jia Yan. Do you want to know if there is no way to guide our competitors? Otherwise, according to you, that small continent should be better than any other small continent. Damn, if there is a way to guide you, it will take you a long time to meet a competitor. Wouldn't this turn into a missing person game?" I thought about entering my descending channel again, but the feeling was exactly the same. The two of us have become different after the desperate number of 400,000 years. Daxian asked slightly coldly. I'm afraid Jia Yan's strength is deep and unfathomable, but we are also afraid of Yu Hui, but we can always take action as long as it's inconvenient. That shocking number made Yu Hui and his 2 men's eyes suddenly become less solemn. But our rapid progress looked so ridiculous behind the huge trees that were 1.7 million kilometers away. Squeak. What's the name of the small land on Jiayan Pavilion? How should you get through this level to the next level? More than 80% of them take action directly. Suddenly the immortal interrupted your random thoughts. Everything has been made several times smaller. Compared with the small continent on the upper level, this place is the territory of the giant kingdom. Of course Daxian prefers the first point. The great immortal shook his head calmly. Jia Yan didn't care whether this person had concealed something or not. Even if he concealed it, he wouldn't be able to hide much. Squeak. Just as Daxian and Kalen were observing the newly arrived world, a sudden voice suddenly came to their ears. Really insignificant? They were originally here. Huh? Eliminate all competitors. You said with a mix of sadness and joy, Brother Daxian is joking. You said you have no information, but this information is enough to explain to him thoroughly what happened in the lower level Xiaolu. Everything has to wait until you get here before you can tell him. 1787. The 7th person came up slowly and silently. In the hinterland of the forest closer, there are only a few giant trees towering into the sky, probably no more than 8 million meters away. It's like our size makes us so weak in each other's eyes. That guy's strength is probably the weakest person I have ever seen in the outside world. It shows that countless competitors have taken action against the ancient Mujiayan, but so far, the old god Jiayan is still here and sits here, which shows that all the competitors who have taken action against me have won. A flame formed in the sea of fire. But that Gomu Yahweh said the name Bridge World calmly and calmly. But when we come to that new world, we feel that everything behind our eyes becomes smaller again. It is not weak at all. Such a female creature is definitely more exaggerated than a special female. The great immortal deliberately felt the other party's strength. Perhaps the other party's strength far exceeded his own, or perhaps the two sides' cultivation systems were the same, and he could not feel any power at all. Sir Kalen Pavilion, you said at first that there was no way out on that floor. Is that true? It's possible to call me a great immortal. I saw the long dragon creature in the sea of fire, violently opening its dragon mouth. The Daxian spoke true to his words, and suddenly took Kalen into the dark white passage ahead. It should be a random transmission. He saw that there was not even a trace of energy on his feet. He never thought that the ascending channel that sent you here was so precise. The two of them fell into a drowsy state. Ufuragai obviously knew what the two of them were thinking, and said eloquently, however, if they are not sure of each other's loyalty, it is possible to continue to form an alliance, but when the points are finally settled, only the number of targets each kills will be counted as the standard. You must know that although it is more difficult for two people to join forces to kill the enemy, it is also difficult for assassinations and other incidents to occur, and it is difficult to kill any competitor. If they only join forces to kill one, how will the number of kills be divided at that time? How will we face weaker enemies? That all needs to be decided by you. If you don't have confidence in the other party, it will naturally not continue to cooperate. Kalen was startled, and then laughed. That's right, you are incompetent. You said that there is no way to find the way to the lower level, right? But that level has not yet used the skills to go to the lower level, so your skills work. There is actually a deep mountain and old forest outside. Is it like the next time we were in the teleportation array? When the barrier came to the front of the Great Immortal and us, it turned into a circle and wrapped around the middle of the Great Immortal's feet. The 7 people suddenly felt like they were facing a small enemy, and their eyes were focused on the place where the sound came from. A layer of joyful dragons seemed to pour down from the front and suddenly disappeared. That means that if the other party doesn't have information yet, then the information is more important. It's broken. I wish your majesty to recover 2 huge areas. You go. Gomujiayan said in a hurry. Gomujiayan continued, yes, the dispute over the small road is not what they thought. No, at that level, it is actually very different from the final small land. What they have to do is to conquer the unknown. It's a very complicated level to eliminate competitors, right? And it further illustrates the point that the other party still has certain thoughts about the so-called competitive competition. By the way, Kalen, doesn't he have some information about the lower level Xiaolu? If he doesn't, I can tell you now that he does. But soon his expression became surprised. Do you want me to do it myself? That's not half the story. Unless the Great Immortal uses all my strength to escape, trying to keep distance behind such a huge thing is simply a reality. We have experienced that state before. The Great Immortal was slightly surprised. This is not the case now. You have determined that Yu Hui is weak, and the male creature in your eyes has become bad in every aspect. The two suddenly looked at each other, and then separated hundreds of kilometers away. It's broken, go ahead. If there are less details, the monitor will tell you. Brother Jia Yan is waiting for you two to become colleagues. The Daxian resisted the urge to distance himself, stopped his movements, and respectfully saluted the Lohander. Thank you Les, Yu Hui, for the compliment. Buzz. And that also shows how deep and measurable the opponent's strength is. There is no screen-like energy brilliance below. Bridge World. With the failure of the entire competition just around the corner, who can give up the temptation of becoming a Xiaoneng? Since the two of them passed the upper level and came to Brother Jiayan, it also shows that they do not have their own abilities and fate. They have no chance to hit the so-called little ability. And it miraculously divided the sea of fire into two halves. The great immortal looked at the sky, and under the ancient trees, two spots of light flew up. And in such a shocking super small version of the world, Daxian's heart skipped a beat, and he moved some distance away from Kalen. And Kalen seemed to have done the same, but your eyes flickered, as if she had nothing to say. Too low and small. It is the appearance of Daxian and Kalen. That's true. It's not without him. I'm afraid even if you defeat one of them, it will be difficult to escape. Could it be that, Kalen Pavilion is trying to fool me? The immortal asked calmly. Xiaoneng's power is indeed unpredictable. It's a tree, no wonder we noticed something. While talking, Daxian and Kalen were surprised to find that this huge tree, which was 170 kilometers away, actually entered the clouds and mist while they were talking, and gradually lost its shape. We looked at each other and finished using the brainwave power technique of being able to speak in the descending channel. 400,000 years. It's a bad idea. It is this feeling of ascending passage that I had when I came to Xiaoyang Xiaolu successively. A group of rough white monkeys were running back and forth in the mountain stream. Knowing that the female creature is a treasure, she is willing to say too little to herself. The two fellow Taoists who are competitors are using their ease, he. Brother Jiayan has been guarding here for so long that he has forgotten to accept the competitors he has accepted several times. He is so worried that even if they are not from your bridge world, Brother Jiayan will also use violence against native beings. All the masters of the outer world inside know what their own world is called. Even when many masters face the devil, they deny that there is no other world except the outer world, and they even deny that the universe is smaller than the outer world. It shows that I also understand the meaning and birth process of the outside world. The key is that we simply felt that there was no one here, so we were naturally surprised to be so close to this person. What emerged was a slightly less surprising target. We looked at the new world behind us with curious eyes. Ha, the two competitors are bad. This god is Gumujiayan from the heavenly palace. He has not guarded here for 400,000 years. He looked completely powerless. Yu Hui smiled heavily after hearing this. That's right. He can think of that, which shows that he has a bright mind. Your notebook did not distribute the objects to them. As long as the distance between the two competitors is 100 million kilometers away, the object will be aroused, and the direction is vaguely given, and then they can choose whether to advance or head down. Note that the light will not show that the opponent's number is much smaller. Maybe they join forces and claim to have no advantage, but in the end they encounter 8 people, or there is no way that the 77 people will join forces to compete with each other, and everything will be bad for themselves. The small trees just left like that. Well, Brother Jiayan has been here for 400,000 years, and more than 80% of the competitors have taken direct action. However, more than half of them are as respectful as him. Deo, his choice is very stupid. You too, I have condensed half of my blood into a bead, which is also convenient for you to carry. Alas, my vitality is severely damaged this time. If nothing happens, please help yourself. The immortal side. Females with such strength are actually willing to give up, which shows that there are very few other competitors who can reach the top and give up voluntarily. A tiny bead appeared. Jiayan is indeed at the Xiaoneng level. Upon hearing this, the Daxian was glad for his choice. Kalen didn't analyze it, and immediately looked at the great immortal with a stern look. You two are bad. Because we notice. The other circled around under the colorful orchid paws. The whole outer world is not big enough yet. Although the rift was small, it was not enough to shake the already shaky alliance between the two. I know what you mean by meeting you and others at Gomujiayan Pavilion. Kalen had just thought of how to use means to make the low-ranking competitor have a closer relationship with her and make it easier for her to take advantage of him, but she was interrupted by the great immortal. She suddenly became interesting. After all, the conversation just now created a rift. After all, there is no way that a competitor who could reach this point could just borrow it. Even if he is a great immortal, he is definitely not that far behind. Sweep the beat into subspace. The giant tree on the other side is the lowest in the area, but it's not as low as 1.7 million kilometers away. Gomujiayan showed a teachable expression. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3491. Did the last Dabby competition also come here? I remember, why not? Jia Yan discovered another loophole. There are other competitors who have already told the content of the last competition. Kalen snorted again. You must be listening to the descendants of some weak family. The initial content of the last competition was naturally not like ours, but the later content still came to this continent, but it's just a different way of coming. Besides, even if it was different the last time, the seniors who are familiar with my family still participated in the last competition, and I still have a copy of the information in his hands. After hearing this, Jia Yan felt his heart take a deep breath. Good guy, Kalen's family is really powerful. Although there was no great talent in the last competition, we can recognize the great talent from last time. And this time Kalen has also reached the later stage. Even if she is not a powerful person, people from her family have come to this final level in both times, which shows that this family is extremely terrifying and really has its own tricks. Then even if what you said is right, the current competition content has changed, and we no longer have the need to cooperate. The meaning of Jia Yan's words is obvious. With a bang, a small door of a house built on the roots of a large grass closed tightly. So insects are the main force of animals. After falling to the ground, I suppressed my weak and tyrannical aura. As I walked down the street, some people even spared me a glance. But I gave up on using violence to obtain information. Xiao Yu walked away for half a year. Concubine Kun? Jia Yanro laughed. Turn around and fly in the other direction. In fact, she knew from the beginning that her strength was not enough to reach the later stage. After all, her family background was extraordinary and she had already known the intensity of the competition through her predecessors. The world behind his eyes suddenly became clear. First of all, there is no limit to the distance. The detection range of 100 million kilometers seems to be very small, but if you throw it into the vast small continent like Zhishao, it may not be enough to see at all. The little family coexisted happily and peacefully. So before half a month of low-speed circling, I stepped on the glory of the acceleration formation and arrived at a certain plane area as far as the eye could see. Kill an enemy and the enemy's detector will be integrated into the killer's detector. Everyone is the pride of heaven. So Kalen and Concubine Kun are on opposite ends of the spectrum. My old god was still there, strolling towards the back. Knowing that there are not many competitors outside, Jia Yan can guarantee that in that kind of open area, the enemy has a range of up to 100 million kilometers, and the low-level domain masters with extremely weak eyesight can see through their mental power. See the other person's figure. Jia Yan thought about it and his eyes became expressive. Lu Hui keenly felt that the hosts outside the room had made complete preparations. They were sure that Lu Hui would break in weakly and we would rise up to resist. I took the initiative to provoke him. After all, I was still unfamiliar with the new rules. In short, touching the other person's psychology is accurate. Lu Hui thought about it and flew in the completely opposite direction, turning into a white rainbow. Lu Hui was walking in the direction of the city gate when a sneaky leech creature crawled over from his horse and whispered to Lu Hui with his head raised and his head raised. The terrain is suitable for fighting, and there are too few variables. These trees, which appear to be harmful to humans and animals, may very well turn into the front-level existence of the territory lord in the last moment, and rise up to her people. Having a plan, he got up and flew away from the area. Such and such. Hey, boring. The size of the plane is about less than 100 billion kilometers in radius. Well. The approaching competitor probably read my fear from Jia Yan's light spot, and finally stopped there. What the hell? Although the vegetation outside is huge, the life of flesh and blood is very great, because the giant creatures were gradually eliminated in the long process of degradation, and a few trees were eaten by herbivores like the earth alone. Animals that eat green vegetation will fight back. Several similar situations have proven that those shrunken indigenous insect-like creatures cannot produce any intelligence at all. If there aren't many competitors outside the mountains and forests, I haven't encountered them many times during that time. But I felt so good, so I still shook my head and said, "That's right, those fruits are not everywhere outside the woods. If he takes out two, you will make a deal with him. That kind of fruit is not available anywhere in the deep forests far away. But for competitors like Jia Yan and us, the effect is small but beautiful, but it is still very valuable to the insect life inside. No wonder. But how many people who have reached that point are willing to doubt me? I just feel that my scalp is numb. Unless you don't have bad friends, joining forces is less bad than going it alone. Compared to the Tianshan sect, which seems to be much stronger than Tiangong, this one is only a little bit weaker. In the face of competitors, Xiajia actually has the bottom line. Although Jia Yan did not expend too much energy at that time, he still carefully chose to run away. Lu Hui read the content under the light. Jia Yan felt relaxed and happy. He came out of the woods. Watch and give it to him. If you feel satisfied, give it to him. These great insect-like animals outside the mountains and forests have moved their families to the plains, where they have become kings and hegemons and developed various forces. This and that is. The risk is minimal. Sure enough it is. I became a spirit from grass and trees, and immediately developed extremely terrifying strength. I ruled the entire small continent, and was one of the few top masters who once created the Tiangong. Within 100 million kilometers, the area is small, but it is also large. Of course, that kind of resistance was just scratching an itch for Jia Yan. The color of the figure was unexpected, overlapping with the snow-white butterfly figure in Jia Yan's memory. Jia Yan also got the information about Duoshen Muzilu outside those days. It must be Kalen who wants to kill her and is chasing her, right? She really wanted to take advantage of Jia Yan. Jia Yan's unwavering performance also made the other party think that Jia Yan should not be relied upon. You haven't asked how many distant lives there are. The information we pieced together and given is quite a lot. The mountain forest stretches for about 100 billion kilometers, and there is not a huge plain in it. As for how few plains there are, if you are small, someone will know. Jia Yan looked at the description and saw another explanation, which made me feel a little jealous. Sure enough, the leech creature's eyes lit up. Jia Yan looked at it, then picked it up and flipped it through, and asked in a lively voice, "How much does it cost?" Because Kalen's combat power is generally considered weak compared to competitors, and it is of little help to her. It can be said that she is accurate but still a burden. The existence in this light seemed to be aware of the light spot outside Jia Yan, and slowly followed the location of the light spot, approaching quickly and leisurely. I'm afraid it's less. The one who changed everything was the little ancient wood fairy whom I had seen one after another. And according to the words outside the light, there is no existence outside the heavenly palace that can live longer than the ancient wood fairy. It is possible. God knows whether it was luck or a nightmare. Out of respect for any competitor, Jia Yan still made the decision to move to the plains where the terrain was more suitable for fighting. Jia Yan was moved and just stayed there, quietly looking at the forest with towering ancient trees, waiting for the other party's arrival. That new continent is called Senmu continent. How old is this ancient wood fairy? Lu Hui took out a fruit similar to Tao Heart. Even if not, it's probably someone who has the other person's life in mind. Hey, as expected, there are a lot of impulsive people who have reached that level. Maybe when the time difference is small, a few competitors will directly start a life and death fight with their opponents. There is no intelligent life outside. Concubine Kun? That's right. Concubine Kun's strength is at your level, so the two should have nothing to do with each other. It's definitely not some kind of secret skill. It's just that this matter has something to do with you. In fact, as early as ancient times, the small continent was also called the little continent of life because of its size and the limited variety of life. If I come into contact with competitors 400,000 years later, I'm afraid I'm still only 400,000 years old. According to the records, I'm afraid I won't even be 1 million years old. The opponents on those two occasions obviously made the same decision as Jia Yan. The analysis of local vegetation and terrain has reached a whole new level. There are certain kingdoms beneath the ground. Just as Jia Yan flew too far, he saw a spot of light flickering in the light. It's just over now, it's still early, and I may have made a wedding dress for my person if I decide whether to live or die. Kalen was obviously weighing the pros and cons. Kalen is a fool. How could you know that you are Jia Yan's opponent? Of course, maybe I just want to be the first to answer questions. If one considers one's strength as a helper and cannot escape, then the mortality rate will be increased. At that moment, Kalen, who was suspected of being the concubine Kun, might have had a bad intention when she said what she just said to herself. The life forms outside are all insect creatures similar to Jia Yan. And competitors don't have 100 million kilometers of reaction time. So she made a plan from the beginning. By clinging to some low-potential competitors, no matter what method, she would catch a ride. Then in the early stage, it is said that with the blessing of quasi-rules, your strength will be turned upside down. The change. I was so startled that Kalen had not yet lit up your colorful light, soaring into the sky. Jia Yan began his days exploring the small land of Kanmuo. It made Jia Yan feel the feeling of a special life form for a long time. The same goes for Jia Yan. Since the other party is here to kill, I may choose to chase him. There are only a few flowers and plants on the feet, as well as giant trees that are both small and large. It is difficult to get any specific information from our mouths. I was already close to the remaining plain area. But if the opponent comes to kill Lu Hui on his own initiative, I will be afraid of trouble. If I fight with that competitor, I can at least feel how powerful the competitor is at that level. Jia Yan rushed into the area in a roundabout way. Jia Yan realized the difficulty of competing outside. But now, the low-level player is not willing to cooperate with me. Those who can get to that point must have some kind of special strength. Go to the plains. In that kind of place, even if there are no suitable targets, it will be difficult to concentrate on killing them. Luck. There is no inseparable relationship with Gumu Xiaoxian. What? Jia Yan knew that when competitors reached that level, it would be so difficult to eliminate so many people with less bloodshed. Sorry friends, you grasshoppers always invite guests. It is as beautiful as a great insect life like Jia Yan. Presumably many competitors would make that choice. No more cooperation. The outer world is not the outer world. Beings who have reached the level of Xiaoneng can live under 1 million years old. Although Xiota is generally younger than Jia Yan. Now, that small land of ginseng and trees has transformed into a world with abundant life again. But there aren't many that are similar to it. Tiangong can become a super small force that is either humble or arrogant to competitor organizations. That time consumed me for a long time. Hee, you Leech clan can be said to be bullies here. You collected all this information from all over the place. After all, you leeches, sewers and other things are your favorites, and besides, you have to listen to them. The worst part about intelligence is that a little information is collected and becomes the book in your hand. During this period, I encountered two instrument reactions, and I keenly chose to avoid them instead of fighting them. But that shows that fighting outside the mountains and forests is not a bad choice. Is that friend new to the city? You don't have anything that is not helpful to newcomers. What if you want it? Jia Yan was slightly curious as to why he told Shiyuan about concubine Kun at that pass. But just when the light points of both sides are about to touch each other. Xiaoyu is only 700,000 kilometers away. After all, even if you win, you might be injured, or taking advantage of others. So quickly met a competitor? But in the early stage of life, extremely weak people were gradually born from here, and eventually they split into pieces towards the small continent above. There were also small battles for resources here because of insufficient resources. Gradually, the small continent of life became desolate. It even became a Jedi with few lives. You already know the information that Your Excellency mentioned. Are you really willing to ask you to step back and be a guest for a day? The size of Shenmue Xiaolu may be far beyond Jia Yan's imagination. Ping Yuanji. If you really want to fight, it only depends on your own strength, but also whether your skills are incompatible with each other, and whether you can control the opponent's strength. So when he arrived at the 700,000 meter gate, Xiaoju tried out Jia Yan's attitude. After a moment of determination, he still chose to meet with Lu Hui. Okay, it's okay to get together and part ways. That's right, I have nothing to say to your majesty. The then concubine Kun has officially apologized to you. Jia Yan can read the other party's struggle between heaven and man and the beauty of it. During the exploration process, Jia Yan encountered such a situation twice. One of them was for self-protection, and the other was a man-eating tree. He was killed by Jia Yan shortly after the confrontation. But at the same time, my exploration equipment the light came on, and a competitor noticed that I was fighting and wanted to come over and take advantage. This plane is said to be a large plane outside the mountains and forests, but the actual size is much larger than you imagine. In other words, the fewer people killed, the less advantage there is in detection. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3492. Insatiable. Jia Yan put away the Tao heart fruit in his hand as coldly as ice, pushed the leech creature away, and walked forward. This is so strong. Pushing away the power of the leech creature, he has used a little of the power of the territory lord, and this leech creature is a naturally growing existence. When he reached the middle level of the galaxy, he felt the power of the territory lord. He, who originally had fierce flames in his eyes, quickly said, shrinking his head, he stopped pestering Jia Yan. In this city, there are laws, but if some strong man really takes action to kill him, he will die without knowing how, and no one will hold him accountable. Jia Yan took 2 steps, and a cockroach-like creature crawled over. Do you want to buy books? Don't believe the Leech clan just now. I have all the books they sell here, and I only charge 1/10 of their price, and they also come with free shipping intelligence information about the city and its surroundings. Oh? How much will you take from my fruit? Jia Yan calmly took out the Tao heart fruit that he showed to Leech just now. The other party's face was slightly ecstatic, but he quickly calmed down and quoted a very reasonable price. Deal. Jia Yan made a deal with the other party without any expression and took the change, the city's own currency. In this way, he had the city's currency, and he knew from the cockroach's mouth that it was quite a lot of money. The other party did not cheat Jia Yan and redeemed him with enough money to live an ordinary life in the city for several days. If you are interested, you can check out the employers in the city. You may be able to find a job. After saying so much, the cockroach creature felt that it had fulfilled its duty and crawled away. What a cockroach! Jia Yan's original disgusting feeling about cockroaches has faded a lot. There are many heavenly and earthly treasures on this Shenmue continent. I just took out the Dao heart fruit, and it can be seen that these mud-legged people don't feel too eager, so I stay here not only for exploration. The traces of other competitors can also be used to collect resources, which will help me to mutate the power of the rules again. Jia Yan thought about it. Go to the area where the hotel is listed in the information you just bought. Not long after, a mosquito creature named Assassin came to the city and settled in the city, pretending to be a wild man in the woods. Morning, Assassin. Good morning, boss, are there any new items today? Hee, there are no new goods. You don't want the treasure you were interested in earlier. I really don't want it, it's too expensive. Another month has passed. During this period, Jia Yan was neither arrogant nor impatient and kept his name anonymous. Running around the market, he has never been seen working, but he has been acquiring treasures for promotion, which has attracted the attention of many interested people. But at one point, a few thieves tried to break into the hotel room where he was staying. After inexplicably losing sight of him, many eyes stared at him, which became much rarer. In a city like this where the government barely cares about anything, if you are strong enough, you will have enough status. A powerful foreigner like Jia Yan needs to be treated with caution even for local snakes. When many so-called fierce dragons cross the river, it is really possible to uproot certain forces. After all, this is the world of the strong. Jia Yan was scanning the market for goods. For the strong, the vegetable market is not a vegetable market, it is usually a treasure market, and there are not many lives that really want food. Therefore, the most prosperous urban areas are often the markets that combine daily food and treasures. There is a mixture of fakes and genuine goods. Many people get good things by chance, and many people become obsessed with fakes. Losing all your money, of course, the most is the latter. Jia Yan seems to be one of them. Because he has lost money several times in the past month. There was even one time when a certain boss who nodded and bowed to Jia Yan all the time quietly sent a message to Jia Yan and told him that the treasure he was bidding on at a roadside stall was actually a fake. Jia Yan was still stunned. After spending a lot of money to take pictures of the item, no one in the entire market had sympathy for this stupid and rich newcomer. It doesn't make sense, you have to bet on life and death, you can't persuade this kind of person. Every once in a while, in the smelly ditch not far from the market, or in inaccessible places, a group of such people would die. Everyone believed that no matter how powerful the assassin was, he would not be able to escape a similar fate. On this day, Jia Yan ended up at a roadside stall again. Hee, the spiritual material today is absolutely top-notch. I just bought it from the farmers over there in the woods, and I've started bidding. A stall owner shouted, and many regular customers immediately gathered around. Jia Yan is also among them. 100 city coins. I'll pay you $200. Just as everyone was speaking out, after seeing the appearance of the bidding item clearly, old god Jia Yan also participated in the auction. I will pay 500 yuan. This thing is beautiful, so please don't steal it from me. Is this guy another stupid money loser? When everyone saw Jia Yan, they immediately became happy. Well, this assassin's reputation is already well known to everyone. He has only been here for a month and has suffered several losses. Every time he didn't say anything, he just took it with him and left, but everyone thought that he would hug his head and cry when he got home. This time it's time to bid again. The auctioneers who had no confidence in what the stall owners were offering to bid suddenly became silent. From the assassin's point of view, I'm afraid what's in front of him is not a good thing, so let the assassin lose another sum. Everyone, take a look. There are spiritual marks on the surface of this spiritual object. There must be great spiritual energy in it. Don't you all want it? The stall owners were anxious. When he bought this spiritual object from the farmer, he spent 200 city coins. Now, although the assassin asked for 500, according to his business philosophy, if this thing does not fetch 700 city coins, he would have lost money. But when the bad guy took action, no one really competed with Jia Yan. Otherwise, if it accidentally falls into your hand, wouldn't it mean that you will lose money to Lao Lao's family? Okay, $500, it goes to the assassin. After saying that, the stall owner was at his wit's end and was afraid that he would miss Jia Yan's stupidly rich product and the spiritual object in his hand would be smashed into his own hands. He quickly threw it to Jia Yan, and the money and goods were cleared. Jia Yan caught this spiritual object. Mr. Assassin, why don't you open it in front of everyone, so that everyone can see whether you have made a profit or lost? You must have made money. No one understands the vision of Mr. Assassin, someone sneered with a strange tone. Jia Yan has been losing money for a month and has become somewhat famous in this market. In order not to embarrass myself in front of everyone, I'd better take it back and drive it, thank you. Jia Yan seemed a little uneasy as he hugged the spiritual object and flew towards the hotel. Ha ha ha, I think he will cry to death soon. Bursts of laughter erupted behind him. Not long after, Jia Yan, who was laughed at, returned to the hotel room. He closed the door tightly. The expression on his face that was still bitter just now suddenly changed. A bunch of fools. Are you still laughing at me? He couldn't help laughing. Arriving in front of the so-called spiritual creature. Climb down. He stretched out a foot and touched the spiritual object. These local beings don't know that the so-called spiritual beings they look down upon are actually perfectly capable of understanding rules to the foreign competitors. This Shenmue continent probably has an unimaginable energy level. There are quite a lot of regular things in the entire continent. Jia Yan sighed. This is another rule-sensing thing. For an outsider like him, it was like arriving in paradise. At the same time, he also considered why he didn't come here directly to adopt and collect the rules before. First of all, this continent is really not something that ordinary competitors can come to. Not to mention anything else, after coming for a long time, Jia Yan felt that there was a mysterious power in the air. Although it seemed inconspicuous, it was different from them. After being in contact for a long time, as a competitor, there are signs of instability in strength. Secondly, these rules and regulations cannot be absorbed by ordinary competitors. But I am enough. I have the 3 rules. If I still can't absorb them, I'm afraid not many of these competitors can absorb them. Jia Yan is thinking. Do the experts who arranged the competition have any deep meaning in arranging the route in this way? Coming to this land of rules was definitely the right path, but another comment Hai Tian made before made him have some doubts. I don't know who is right and who is wrong, maybe we reach the same destination through different paths. In short, I have come here and I don't feel that any mistakes will be missed. At least after getting the rule object, I can feel more about the power of the rules. The more power of rules, the stronger he is. With the power of the 3 rules, Jia Yan feels that he should be relatively good among competitors. I can't say whether it can be ranked in the first echelon, but the average level is adequate, or even ranked at least in the middle and upper reaches. It may also be the first echelon, because even Kalen is only the power of 2 major rules. According to his estimation, Kalen's strength should be below average, but she was definitely not at the mercy of others. If I can still delve into the power of new rules, I'm afraid I can jump into the first-class echelon. Then I don't have to be too afraid when I encounter any competitor. In this continent, Jia Yan also tried using subspace techniques to travel or fight, but found that the subspace here was more stable and it was difficult for him to even enter, let alone use it to travel. But fighting can be tried when desperate. It's wood type again. I don't know much about this thing to begin with. Alas, it's better than nothing. He sighed helplessly. The spiritual fruit I just got is of wood attribute. Although I had already guessed it, I couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. The more power of rule comprehension the better, but his energy is limited and he doesn't know much about the so-called wood attribute. But coming to this land of ginseng and wood, of course there are many things with wood attributes. Moreover, just like the fruit in front of you, it is a bit unreasonable to let vegetation like fruits produce fire attributes. I have little contact with things with wood attributes. I didn't understand even a little bit before. Now I have barely understood a lot. The power of rules has come up, but the progress is extremely slow. I am afraid that after such a long time, it will be difficult for someone with real wood attributes to change. Masters have already figured out the wooden rules. And he had just realized a hint of the mystery of the wood attribute. To put it bluntly, it has a wood attribute and is full of vitality. It is quite useful. He now understands more and more about wood attributes and has become quite interested. The attribute of wood represents vitality and affinity with nature. As his understanding of the wooden rules deepened, he naturally felt that his body became more energetic. Is this kind of cramming of rules possible? It shows how terrible the importance of resources is. Jia Yan was actually a little speechless about his changes. A person who originally didn't like the wood attribute and didn't catch a cold very much has mastered Lijiao's wood attribute spiritual objects, and gradually got started, and he also gradually relied on the power of rules. This shows that the so-called understanding and other things are all. It's not too important. As long as there are enough resources and the level of the resources is strong enough, if you bring a pig, it may become powerful. This is the so-called competitor competition. Those powerful people are afraid that they will throw a group of competitors into a place with abundant resources, and then encourage them to grow and create a group of powerful people. Jia Yan felt this keenly, and he couldn't help but feel something in his heart. Is it such an understatement for a powerful person to create other powerful people? Don't understand. Even so, he would not give up the current benefits easily. The enhancement of rules is real. Forget it, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to understand the rules of the wood attribute if I use 100 spiritual objects. I really don't have much talent in this area. It's better to go to Shenmue. If you look around other parts of the mainland, you might be able to find some rules about fire attributes. What he needs most is the fire attribute and the space attribute. Although the wood attribute was good, he also saw that his talent was really insufficient. Instead of waiting here for time while other competitors surpassed him one by one, it was better to set off to search again. I'm afraid this is also a natural trap on the Shenmue continent. From Jia Yan's point of view, many competitors cannot be masters of the wood attribute. Because they come from the universe, it is usually difficult for them to come into contact with the so-called wood attribute spiritual objects. How big are the planets in the universe, let alone the forests? Finding a forest like the Shenmue continent is simply beyond compare. It's difficult as hell, that is to say, it is very difficult to realize the attribute of wood in the universe. Since it is impossible for everyone to have it, then if you are fascinated by the rich attribute of wood on the Shenmue continent and are obsessed with this thing, I'm afraid I will fall behind others. Of course, the Shenmue continent must have a certain amount of other rules understanding objects, otherwise it would be better to continue to understand the rules of the wood attribute in the same place. Jia Yan is the more sensible type. He has already mapped out the next path. If he failed to gain anything from going there, he would return to the plains. No matter how much time it took, he would first learn the rules of the wood attribute. With the 4 major rules, and the newly added one is the powerful vitality rule, I am afraid that his overall strength needs to be improved. Mr. Assassin, are you leaving? Oh, don't leave in a hurry. If you leave, our business, bot, we will miss you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3493. Remember new in 1 second. That's right, we'll have less fun. When Jia Yan finished absorbing the spiritual objects and walked out of the hotel to announce that his enemy was about to leave, a group of friends such as traders expressed their reluctance to leave. These days, there are very few scammers who are so easy to deceive. The key is that this assassin was deceived and refused to cause trouble because of his face. Where can he find such a rare customer in the world? They are really reluctant to give up. Of course, we also know that since Jia Yan has been losing money, it must be because there is a problem with funds, otherwise what would he do if he left in despair? Saying goodbye to this group of traders who pretended to be compassionate, Jia Yan left this plain city without any hesitation in his heart. There are many similar cities and forces on this vast plain. I'm not leaving the plains, but finding some unique terrain in the plains to see if there's anything I need. It is extremely difficult to find space rules, but there is still a guiding light for fire attribute rules, such as places with many flames, or places that produce fire attribute ores. Such places may produce fire attributed spiritual creature. Jia Yan identified the route he originally planned, bought a local Pegasus, sat on it, and started a new journey leisurely. Halfway through, his eyes became fierce for a moment. A light spot flashed away at the corner of his detection instrument. Presumably a passing competitor? This is what Jia Yan originally thought. But it wasn't until the third day that another light spot slid past the corner of his detection instrument. Suddenly, Jia Yan couldn't help but become vigilant. It must be aimed at me. I'm afraid it's the same person I met last time. Otherwise, I have been in Zhenmu continent for so long, and I often encounter competitors who are separated at the first touch. I won't encounter them again for a long time. But encounter two in a row at this time? The probability is impossible. Jia Yan knew that that person might be targeting him. If there is any master who can always lock me in, then there is only one possibility. This guy has already killed a competitor. His eyes were sharp and he was on alert. If the opponent kills a competitor, his exploration range is larger than his own, so he can hang himself. Occasionally entering his own detection range by mistake means that he has only killed one competitor, and the gap with his own detection range is not very large. The reason why he is detected by Jia Yan is often because Jia Yan breaks suddenly and stops. The figure hurried down, and before the opponent could stop in time, he crashed into his detection range. I'm afraid this guy is also confident. Having killed one competitor, do you look down on other competitors? With just a few simple pictures, Jia Yan was able to guess the other party's psychology. Even the strength has been analyzed. Only a strong man who has confidence in himself dares to be so careless, and even if he has strength, if he is wary by nature or has some self-cultivation, he cannot be accidentally detected by Jia Yan twice. This guy should be a capable person, but careless and impulsive in character. Very good, it means that since he is impulsive, he will definitely attack me. It's good to be impulsive. Jia Yan sneered. There are so many ways to handle an impulsive personality. He began to deliberately avoid areas where he might be blocked by experts, or the direction where it is possible to encounter other competitors, and even terrain factors are taken into account. In short, it's like saying, "Come on, I'm right here, waiting for you to attack me." Sure enough, after hanging each other for 3 days, Jia Yan finally followed his own plan and was about to approach a desert-like area when the aura behind him suddenly enlarged. The speed also increased to the extreme, and he quickly approached the area where Jia Yan was located. Coming. Pegasus, go down. Jia Yan let the big horse he was riding go down to the ground first. He really liked this obedient horse. Pegasus also felt something aura, and jumped off the ground with an extremely nervous expression. In this world, any life form can be regarded as an intelligent life as long as it has age and strength, and this Pegasus is no exception. Although it cannot speak and is not very strong, it still understands many principles. Knowing that the strong one is about to start a war, it cannot be affected here. Sudden. When the Pegasus landed and got into the woods, Jia Yan was just getting ready when a figure flew from the horizon. When he saw Jia Yan, who was ready to fight in mid-air, he smiled with a stern expression on his face. "Your Excellency, you are very lustful. Are you waiting for me here?" Armored man? Except for the exposed cheeks, the approaching competitor was actually covered in a rare layer of hard and heavy armor. Holding a large shovel in his hand, it looked like it was a heavy weapon. Jia Yan stared at the other person and didn't answer for the time being. It wasn't until the animal flew close that he smiled calmly. "Yes, you have approached me several times, isn't it just to differentiate yourself from me? It seems that you have extraordinary magnanimity. I am afraid that you are not a weakling among our competitors, right? He, it's good that you know. When I entered the Shenmue continent along the way, I was stained with the blood of 8 competitors. Your Excellency, do you want to leave a name? Otherwise, I won't be able to remember you even if you die." Name. What a loud tone. As the saying goes, if you hunt geese all day long, you will be blinded by the geese one day. Your Excellency, you have killed our competitors along the way. Aren't you afraid of being backlashed today? By you. The other party frowned and glared. "Yes, I'll take my seat." "Then you don't need to leave your name, just die." The armored man with a sinister face swept over with a big shovel. His figure may not be outstanding in the outside world, but among competitors, he is unique, standing 300 kilometers tall. With strong muscles and such equipment, I am afraid that he is no longer a simple heavy warrior, but a giant warrior. Ding. Jia Yan is determined to try the opponent's strength. Stretching out his feet, he superimposed the formation, yin and yang power, and the power rules he faintly activated. After several superpositions, the last great power was almost overturned by him. But facing this giant shovel, his expression changed drastically at the first moment. This power is too great. He was so surprised that he was unable to stop him and was swept away by the power of the giant shovel. There was also a slight gap in the foot. What a domineering force! Although he had expected it, he still couldn't help but look ugly. "Hey, last time, you were slightly injured after being hit by me, but you seem to be fine? Not bad." The big man's eyes were filled with solemnity. None of the competitors is mentally retarded. Even such a strong man cannot act based on passion alone. Jia Yan must be a difficult enemy. But he had no intention of retreating. At least not yet. "You are also very powerful. You can use the power rules better than me. However, I am not a melee type. If I use this move, how can you block it?" Jia Yan sneered. As his feet clicked on the sky, a large amount of formation power spread across the sky. The endless formation light directly covered the entire sky area where the opponent was. What is this? Some kind of siege force? Hey, for us, who use strength to overcome cleverness, this kind of power is nothing to be afraid of. The strong man sneered. Immediately, the arm burst out with great force, the shovel flew up, and a large number of formations were scratched by the corners of the giant shovel in the air, and exploded directly. Originally, Jia Yan was planning to detonate the power of these formations and directly injure the opponent. But before it was launched, the opponent's random attack disrupted the course of action. Jia Yan's eyes jumped wildly. Sure enough, he is indeed a competitor who has reached this level. He is much better than the rubbish below. Jia Yan couldn't help but let out a sigh. Then we have to take action seriously, he said solemnly. After that, the 2 feet tapped together lightly. When loud sounds like morning bells and evening drums vibrated throughout the space, and a strange space force spread out from the center of his body. It directly wrapped up the strong man who was blocked by the power of the formation and could not exit the area for the time being. The power of the field. When the strong man saw Jia Yan using such a technique that only low-level domain masters could use, instead of laughing at him, he started to have a bad look on his face. It turns out that this guy is also someone who knows the real skills of the queen. Interesting. After a moment, the man started dancing with a big shovel in his hand quickly. It actually formed a field. Dang dang dang. Endless power centered on the two, spreading violently, swallowing up everything around them. The earth cracked, and the power of heaven and earth entered a state of chaos. Many small creatures passing through this place were torn apart and turned into powder. So strong. Jia Yan's eyes also became fierce. This is the first time he has encountered someone of the same level who can directly compete with the power of his realm after his great achievement. The actual level of the previous great masters of the Shimming Empire should be higher than Jia Yan, so they are not considered to be of the same level. But this one is actually the same level. No wonder, competitors are described as demons when such powerful people appear. There are a lot of them if they are not demons. Who are demons? Ding. The two were instantly separated. His eyes became sinister. With all the power of several rules, you are more powerful than the last person I killed. Your Excellency is not bad. This is the first time for me to see a competitor who has fought fiercely with me for such a long time. Jia Yan also fought all the way, so naturally he would not give in at all. You know, they entered this continent just to kill. Previously, he did not want to start a fight with an unknown master out of caution, but this time the enemy deliberately wanted to pursue him, which sounded like he was being forced to fight back. Jia Yan is not a fool, so he naturally has a temper. If you want to fight, then just fight to see who is stronger. After playing a few moves, I found that the opponent was very strong. The fighting spirit is even more awe-inspiring. Roar. At this point, no one can say anything about giving in. You have come this far and retreated once. Then you encounter a strong enemy. Will you retreat again? If you retreat again and again, the entire strong man's momentum will be gone, and the possibility of achieving great power will be lowered. There is no right or wrong between Jia Yan and this competitor who has come to the door. It is not that the other is more arrogant, but he is not as calm as other competitors. The two sides fought fiercely, and the fighting was like flying sand and stones. Not far away, there was a caravan that was originally moving here. Many people looked at the scene of the confrontation with pale faces. Let's go. These two are probably close to being powerful. Our caravan is not something we can resist. Even the aftermath of their battle is not something we can bear. This caravan originally wanted to sell to distant forces through the hilly desert areas. Who would have thought that in the wilderness, we could encounter a battle between two top masters? I just wish my parents had fewer legs, so they could run faster than the other. Boom. The aftermath came unexpectedly, burying the entire caravan alive in the mud. A young man broke through the overturned mud, pulled the mud, and finally pulled out more caravans. For life in this world, covering it with mud is not considered fatal. After all, they all have a high probability of growing to the galaxy level when they reach adulthood, and it is not a problem to be covered with mud. Run, run, run. Less than half of the men and horses were pulled out, and the caravan continued to flee crazily. More people climbed out of the mud piles, panicking and choosing their own way. The caravan that was finally pulled out did not cause many casualties, but it quickly became fragmented and no one was reunited. Not long after, the caravan that escaped spread the news that there was a fight between supermasters here, spreading it to everyone around. After about a day, another powerful expert came to investigate cautiously. On the ground, there was only a mess left on the ground, and not even a trace of the master was visible. As expected, it is a battle between top masters. I am here to just take 1 or 2 moves and die. It's so scary. I don't know who will win and who will lose among these 2 unknown masters. I won. 1 billion kilometers away from the war zone. Jia Yan, who came here after a long journey, looked around and saw no one around. Then he slammed down to the ground and to create an underground cave. Puff. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he wiped the blood from his mouth with a lingering heart, recalling the previous battle. It's scary. That guy only controls 2 rules, but his application of the rules is far superior to mine. Especially the rules of power, he is simply superb. Jia Yan felt scared in his heart. In the end, he won this battle. But unlike the great victory he imagined, he was actually injured. Fortunately, the final result was that he, the target of the invitation, killed the man with the rules of power who dared to snipe him. He died under the attack of Jia Yan's final subspace, yin and yang explosives, and the superimposed power of the 3 rules. That blow was so powerful that even Jia Yan didn't expect it to be so powerful. He was also slightly injured. Of course, he had already fought with the opponent and suffered minor injuries before that. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3494. It took me some time to practice, but fortunately, I managed to kill him with all my strength, and I got new inspiration for the use of the rules of power. The rule of force can be said to be the strongest rule of all things. After all, without power, you can't use any powerful moves. The skills of using the rules of force that the strong man brought to Jia Yan were extremely magical. He could not learn them directly, but he could learn by analogy. Look at the harvest. The strong man has a lot of materials on his body, all kinds of materials, even more than Jia Yan. The trophies that must have been obtained after the admiral killed the last competitor have now all entered Jia Yan's arms. Alas, I have been practicing till now, and I don't know what this strong man with the rules of power has gone through. I'm afraid he has fought no less than me, maybe even more, but he has lost his cultivation and his life in one day. If there is anything, Jia Yan sighs most. It was this fight that made him realize that super geniuses can die so easily. He didn't even know the other person's name or origin. Just like that, he died at his own feet. Without a subordinate who is working hard for him, it is still quite cost-effective. When the fish scale creature left, the spirit creature looked at Jia Yan outside his hand with a smile. After looking at a few materials, he didn't find any regular items, which was normal. Which competitor who got a spiritual item wouldn't enjoy it first to improve his strength? The spirit creature dodged in an understatement, and its eyes finally showed a murderous look. Even if there is a slight difference, 44% of the power of the rules is the achievement rule, which is useful. Against other competitors who are a little stronger, he will die. For the weak in the universe, it is not so wonderful. We are just afraid of fighting, and we can still get so much improvement before each fight. In the beginning, a few unlucky local creatures found the Jia Yan that the spiritual creature needed and made a small profit. Magma is all composed of magma. Many people in Shizhou no longer get Jia Yan. I am the first subordinate that the spirit creature has taken in here, and this person is quite incompetent. In a few days, I managed to build a subordinate team of about 100 people. Although I may have bad intentions, but in terms of strength, in the case of Cao Ming, I can at least dominate for a while, but spiritual beings do have their say. The eyes of the spiritual creature roamed in the magma. The use of killing chickens to scare monkeys is extremely bad. The fire elves were supposed to die in such a complicated manner, but before we fell to the ground, our bodies were fluttering and unable to recover. As the companions around us watched in horror, we gradually lost our ability to move. But those who break the balance must be able to do it. It's a matter of care. If you want to leave, you can leave. It's been a month since we found it. 2 months ago. If the number of Jiayan needed is less than double the current number, but recently there are more and more teams that have found Jiayan. The injury has completely recovered, and there is a lot of improvement. In actual practice, it has no effect. Obviously, those frog-like fire elves didn't appreciate it. They roared from time to time, and a few even sprayed out lava-like flames. It's better than nothing. The entire competition process can be described as a bet against all competitors. From the moment life in the outside world ended, I have not been so tolerant. In the desert, the temperature is not very high. Of course I used it myself without any politeness. So even for me, I don't have luck until now. My whales started and then stopped abruptly. I checked my bearings and took a circuitous route towards the depths of the desert where the cold waves soared into the sky. A dignified submaster, who was considered a minor celebrity on that cold island, died in a complicated manner. I thought to myself, that villain knows why. His breath has not been weird recently, and he seems to be getting closer and closer to a bad temper. The magma land is originally an exposed surface. Although many low-level players may be too brave to face the elf frogs directly, there is absolutely no way to explore it. If there is such a slight difference, it is not a natural chasm. That day, I finally rushed to the most famous flaming mountain in the plains. The only thing to worry about is whether Jiayan here can support his own fire rules. The missing frogs screamed in surprise, and suddenly they all burrowed into the magma, and no one was seen again. A very small number of them are related to rules, but as long as they have no corresponding value, I will use low-level items collected outside the subspace to trade with the other party. Before you kill this guy, you still stick to your original plan. Maybe less than half of them are dead, and maybe even those acquaintances are still here. The power of rules to bet on who will achieve less first. Maybe one day, I will die so easily under the attack of another top genius, so I can't be complacent. At least as far as the rules are concerned, it is nothing. When the spirit creature followed suit and performed corresponding operations on the 10 cold islands in the distance, and established its own credibility, a lot of various materials were collected. It took a full month for someone to search for the new Jiayan, and many people had other thoughts. So after searching for a while, I found nothing about the spiritual things. Just take it one step at a time, and hope that other competitors will not surpass you by too little during that time. For a time, many people's minds changed. Neither Haitian nor Kalan seems to have their own means and luck, but in a team of competitors with similar existences everywhere, we can say that they are outstanding. Of course, if there were no reparable injuries, this life would be ruined. The several low-level flame frogs that clearly jumped out from above were directly cut in half by the vicious energy of several formations. Cao Ming looked at the detector and found some sign of a competitor. Everyone, I want to search for some supplies. Do you know if I can entrust them to search for them? Go up to the ground. Cao Ming spoke and cast his gaze under the rash superior. Poof. A fish-scale monster with a small U-territory lord level, known as the second master in the outside world, nodded with a high eyebrow. There was a stern look in Ling Wufu's eyes. During that process, I was not very happy. On the 10th day, I found something similar to the Tao heart fruit that was ineffective on local life. When the time came a week ago, the 1st Brigade brought back some kind of object that was suspected of being a Jiayan, something ordinary and strange, but without any aura. The spirit object was overjoyed and rewarded it on the spot. Some kind of fire attribute Taoist heart item. And I found even less Jiayan, so my time of about half a year was wasted. Then I went to look for the place of flame rules. The time I spent on the road was to know less, and whether I could find a similar place of flame rules next. The land is still certain. CAO is effective for native creatures, but it means that they are completely useful, otherwise they would have flowed into the market in the first place. That super low-level player who seems to be reasonable is actually very fair. He helps me search, and I will punish him accordingly. In the flames, there were actually some fire elves that looked like frogs, roaring at the spiritual creatures flying below. Because it's not your kind. It is an ore-like thing. That is the key thing that can allow the galaxy level to break through and retreat into the secondary division. In that place of fire, I'm afraid it will be difficult to fill up your fire rules. That's really wrong. I'm afraid Jia Yan can push me back even more of the power of the fire attribute rules. That day, the huge Mosquito landed on a smaller cold island. More than 70,000 explorers have formed a team. Although they may devote themselves to searching for treasures for spiritual objects, they may also pay a little attention to the so-called aura objects when collecting other materials, and the results will gradually slow down. Retrograde. It's broken, little man. The physical laws of the outside world are all the same. So, I am very willing, and is there any other way? My entire mosquito body gradually became covered with a small amount of fiery red color. The original white and blue colors lost the smell of fire. If it is thrown into the hands of local creatures, it will be regarded as some kind of mineral, but if it is put in the hands of competitors, it is an absolute treasure that can be exchanged for thousands of dollars. There is a missing feeling in the spirit creature's heart. It was about how we would happily distribute the harvest when we turned back. It only meant that everyone on Leng Island suddenly understood after receiving the news. The lava rolls. I suddenly thought about what happened to Hai Tian and what happened to Kalen now. Cao Ming was disappointed and ended his detailed search. That's not even months or nearly half a year of hard work. In a situation of high effort and low return, followers gathered in an instant. Spiritual creatures can lower this world's height to the maximum, because I am a world-level beast with extremely weak self-healing ability. As for whether half of them escaped to other cold islands, or whether they came out but worked hard, what does that matter to the spiritual beings? Chirp. Well, there aren't any local lives up there, so why are they entrusting us? Even the spirit creature himself thinks that he is quite outstanding. Shi Gao can, but he still has to find others. If I can always find him, it means that I have done some useful work during that time. Bad news comes one after another. Many of them are here to hunt for treasures, and some of them are cold tolerant. I care about reputation. This is the 7th time I've said what I said. It's definitely not the same as the last time. I'm just so nervous. It's very bad. That strategy is wrong. If you stop collecting for a while, wouldn't you be able to achieve your fire rules by relying on that? However, my instrument has increased the detection range by a certain amount, but unfortunately it cannot be combined with the effect of killing the opponent. Thunder and lightning. That's right. If it's so difficult to find something like Jia Yan, then this Shenmue Xiaolu would be a little too outrageous. Fire-type Cao Ming, a spiritual object, had never imagined that it would be so difficult to find, because there are people in this small continent who know how to use it. Later, I bought so few wood-type Cao Ming outside the forest. I thought I would be able to find it if I searched for it later. Those islands are called cold islands. Before the spirit creature finally realized its shortcomings, it thought of a way to remedy the situation. Just a short while after the fish scale creature entered and exited, it ran back again. Overall, the data is more exaggerated. The physical characteristics are the same as those that are millions of times higher. That mountain is an active volcano, filled with small amounts of flame eruptions over the years. The spirit size. It is impossible to know whether others can reach that level, whether they die, or whether they still find a way back and waste time on the upper continent. But compared to the Xiaoyang Xiaolu on the upper level, this was dwarfed. The spiritual beings who had long been accustomed to the temperature above were not afraid of it at all, so they took a roundabout way and shot the lightning deep into the desert. Hey? This sir? He's a big guy, but he speaks so softly. Do you want to arrange for you to wait for work? There's nothing you can do. We ended our dedicated search for inside and out. A roaring sound coming from the giant mosquito caused the fish-scale creature to tremble. I also dared not to say anything, and before saying that I knew, I entered and exited the retreat where the spiritual creature was. The saying that when people are small, they are small, it is quite effective. Even if the detection area is increased by half, it is not enough. The eyes of the brigade that received Shigao were immediately red. The strong man also killed a competitor, and I killed the strong man again. Logically speaking, the effect of the strong man can be superimposed, but the range I can detect is extremely small. Then he quietly started his cultivation here. The sky is filled with yellow sand. Yes, little man. These masters that I have not encountered along the way, such as the subspace masters that I first fought with, as well as several collaborators who know life and death. The spirit creature sighed. A low-level domain master, Xiao Yu, who was a subdivision master, was nailed to the ground by a foot as soon as he opened his mouth. There are less than 10,000 life forms under the island, and the life forms that can withstand the cold under the cold island are either cold-tolerant creatures, or they are not powerful people. And it is obvious that the former less here. The effect is so unbelievable that even the body of the spiritual creature is useless. Another fire attribute Jiayan? It's very bad. The price is as mentioned. A figure rose into the sky from the desert soil. Big thing, I want to kill you today. If you want to die, don't make any noise. The villain is an explorer who doesn't feel the insignificance of the villain. Recently, he has no idea of leaving. Do you know if the villain cares about us? As long as no one is focused on searching for me. That's because my fire rules have reached a certain limit. I can break through it by just a hair's breadth, but it's a huge mistake. The cold islands are all small, but no native life has taken root here. The endless magma formed the ocean, and there were some soft materials in those oceans to form large islands. But now I think about it, how can my own strength be compared to a small number of farmers searching for things outside the mountains and forests? The very few creatures under the entire Leng Island began to act in a panic. I was secretly speechless. The temperature is so low that the volcanoes in the outer world are also quite exaggerated. The material erupted reaches millions of low temperatures, which is much different from the temperature inside Xiaoyang. The entire magma land was slowly filled with a small number of searchers. After all, the breakthrough items used by people in the outside world don't have the same effect on me as those of the world's richest and the weakest. Spiritual beings are in high spirits. The amount of trading materials given by spiritual objects is definitely very small. That's right. Why seek death? But the time passed 8 months ago.